Hey everybody, it's Spencer coming at you fast and loose. On today's episode of Style and Direction, we're going to take another trip down to Gooch Town. We're going to talk to Garret and Josh together at last. So we'll be talking about thrifting, how they kind of grew in their style journey, and how they influenced each other. We're going to talk about how their lifestyle really influences their sense of fashion. And then in the second half of the episode, the meat, as I like to call it, we're going to talk about ethical consumerism in menswear, how you can shop while still maintaining a clear conscience and making sure that not too much of your money is going to be funding exploitation. So all this and more on today's episode of Style and Direction. We have the meat. Hey guys, welcome to Style and Direction, a menswear podcast without the stuffiness. Did I get it? Is it without the stuffiness or without all the stuffiness? Did I get it right?
I think in the first few episodes it's without all the stuffiness, and then it changed to without the stuffiness because I had to drop the it was cleaner. It was cleaner.
Just Facebook. Send us an email about which one you think is better, guys. Hit us up.
Don't hit us.
We'll put a poll on the Twitter that we have, but I don't think we've ever used.
I don't have. Did we make a Twitter?
I think we made a Twitter, but we've never used it.
Hey, how was your day, Spencer?
Oh, my day was great. Once like every episode, for the most part, been at work. Men at work. That was me. Men working. That was
yeah,
me.
I sure hope you do.
That was our Vine reference for the episode.
Welcome to Vine Refs.
A podcast
about referees.
Yeah, so that was my day. I was just at work. It's been a long weekend without getting into any specifics. I'm very tired because we can't reference current events no one's going to look on our Instagram. The other night, last night, Ethan and I were at 82. That's what it's called?
Yeah, it's like an arcade bar in the Arts District. Barcade.
And we were out kind of late and had to wake up early, but the night before I was also up very late and had to wake up early.
You know, we say that we were out late, but I was talking to my dad today, and my dad's like, you guys came home at midnight.
But it took me a long time to fall asleep because I always take a long time to fall asleep.
You should get that checked out by your doctor. The shit doctor. That's my name. That's an inside joke. I'd love to be a part of more someday.
Okay, well...
So you went to work today.
I went to work today.
You were really tired. Okay.
Yeah, and that's it. It took 10 minutes to talk about that, but that's okay.
Okay. Well, okay. So I had like five. How many outfits did I shoot yesterday? I think we did like 3 of Spencer. Then we went to the arcade, and then this morning, right before Spencer left, I did two more shoots of him. Went to a coffee place, did another shoot there, and then met up with our guests and did 3. We're gonna have 5 shoots total, I think, of both of these guys that I'll introduce in a second. They're giving they're doing that Maury Povich thing, I think, right? Is that what it is? Yeah. Hey, Umbaku. The man ape. Jabari tribe. Spoilers for Black Panther, but this episode's coming out way later than that because we like to bank them up. This is a little how the sausage is made for podcasts. Sometimes for episodes they record them way earlier and then they release them way later because life happens, guys. Yeah. But what's important is that I'm talking and I'm feeling. Anyway, so my day was, I'm pretty drained, to be quite honest. I've been editing and taking pictures all day, and now we're recording a podcast.
We sure are.
Yeah.
So Ethan, what? Let's get into our segment called "What Are You Wearing?"
Oh shoot! Are you asking?
Wink.
Are you asking me right now what I'm wearing?
Yes. Yes.
Well, I'm wearing kind of a blue outfit. I'm afraid I blew myself. That was 2 jokes right there. For the price of 1.
Tweet at us which joke you liked better.
Hashtag joke tweets. So I'm wearing like a blue, cobalt blue plaid sack jack, as we like to call him now, a blue polka dot tie with a blue sweater and blue chinos and like purplish blue socks and a black penny loafers.
Your shirt is green striped. So
my shirt is green, which is kind of blue, because if you think about it, blue and yellow, that makes green, right? It's been a while since I've
it's been. There we go.
There it is. It's been a while since I've actually.
It's been a while.
Oh, you got both of them in there.
Both of them.
When is Scott Ackerman gonna like just sue us for stealing all of his jokes? But yeah, I mean, I haven't taken like color theory in a long time. Actually, someone asked me, like, hey, when you do fashion blogs, like, what do you use with the color wheel? I'm like, there's a color wheel. It's all natural, baby.
Yep.
That's how I prefer my ladies. Okay, I'm done with that one. Spencer,
Cool.
what are you wearing today?
So I'm gonna start from the top down like you did. That's how I'm gonna do my outfit.
Not middle, and then the side. Which direction you want to go in?
Yeah, I'm just gonna do top down. I think that's gonna be standard from now on. I am wearing a 60s like kind of.
We're both wearing plaid.
Yeah,
basically.
We're the Plaid brothers.
We're the PBs.
Yeah, PB and J, peanut butter and Jan.
Jim.
Yeah, Pam Beasley and Jim.
Frank and Beans.
Yep. So I'm wearing a 60s, like a mid 60s brown. Sorry. The mic. I held the mic away so I could breathe in.
Chocolate rain.
Chocolate rain.
I met Tay Zonde. I just want to jump in and say that.
Oh, you met him at like a 4th of July party,
okay,
right?
So this is so off topic. This is the worst podcast to our 10 people listening. But okay, so I was at, I was feeling really sad. This is okay. More context. This is 2 years ago, near my breakup, and my friend wanted to throw me out on a limb, and he invited me to this rooftop 4th of July party that he was shooting because it was like some folk singer that was like up and coming. I've never heard of him. I don't know what happened.
His name was Bob Dylan.
Yeah. And it was like right in like the heart of downtown LA, or DTLA, as I've heard it's called, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Our guests are confirming that, and so it's like, I don't know, these celebrities, like minor people, maybe like produce. I don't know who they were, but Tay Zonde walks out, and I'm like, holy shit, where am I right now? And at the end of it, like, we were all leaving. We're like, I was helping with like one of the B cameras, and I was like, hey, Mr. Zonde, can I take a picture with you? And then his friend jumped in, maybe because Tay, I think, is like a little bit shy, which makes sense. And he's like, oh yeah, Tay's totally fine with it. And I took a picture with them, and I think it's on my Instagram. If not, I'll have to find it somewhere.
And then post it on the show notes or whatever.
Yeah, I'll post it on the podcast. Yeah, follow on @StyleAndDirection, all spelled out, on Instagram. We post some of the funny stuff that we talk about there.
We sure do. Okay, back to me.
Yeah, back to what are you wearing?
The segment. So like I said, like mid to late 60s brown plaid sport coat. I got a blue OCBD Brooks Brothers, like probably 70s or 80s. I got a red and gold striped tie. A lot of people call it my Gryffindor tie, and I take offense to that.
Because you're a Hufflepuff.
I took the quiz, and I am.
No, me, I did that.
Yeah.
Too. I'm a Hufflepuff.
No, because I'm like, I don't wear it because of Harry Potter. I wear it because it's a cool tie, but it's like from the 50s or 60s. Got my Spear and McKay chinos.
Quick shout out to Spear and McKay.
Quick shout out. I got red Uniqlo socks, and then Johnson & Murphy cap toes.
But the cool thing about this jacket is that where'd you get it?
Some store in Melrose. I can't remember the name. I was going to look it up, but I didn't. But anyway, it was one of the first vintage pieces I've ever bought. Like, the first vintage piece I ever bought was like a 70s brown plaid jacket, so I guess I was into that kind of early. But it did not fit me at all because I did not even bother trying it on in the store. I was so excited.
That's like the most innocent and worst thing you could ever do.
Seriously. So my grandma took me and my friend on a trip to LA, and I got this at a store in Melrose. But it's funny because we're going to talk about, with our guests, thrifting
that's one
in Los Angeles, and a topic of that's one of the topics, but we're also talking about other things.
Yeah, so we're gonna have a little bit of help talking about this thing that kind of defines the blog. When I first started it, it was I don't know, I was wearing like H&M stuff, and now it's like thrifting and a little bit of contemporary stuff. And so we've got two guys here who also kind of share that view. They get most of their clothes, secondhand, whether it's designer or vintage, thrift stores, consignment stores. Please give it up, and I know you're going to clap at home, for the Gooch brothers, Joshua and Garret. We're clapping. There we go.
Hello.
Howdy.
Tell us, what are you guys wearing right now? So paint us a word
Joshua
picture.
Joshua here. This is kind of reference for voice for later on. This is Joshua.
And this is Garret.
He doesn't sound like that. Can you? It's like if you're giving the whole point of this was to give a vocal reference, and he sounds like he's introducing SNL cast members.
That was my talk
Garret
show host
Gooch.
voice. Okay, this is actually my voice right now, being my big funny guy.
So he's gonna go in and out of very old New York Jewish man.
There's gonna be. I feel like there's gonna be a lot of voices on this episode.
Probably, yeah. He's gonna go. He's gonna go old Jewish man, kind of oh hello voice to Don Pardo, recently deceased SNL announcer, and then his normal voice, which is I'll let you describe it. But yeah, so I just took my jacket off because it's actually hotter than
You took off your sack jack.
I took off my sack jack.
Okay.
So today I've got on actually a new flat cap from Monsivius & Co. from
Our friend Damien. Yeah.
And I've been wanting to
Who
buy...
we will get on either before or after this episode. We don't know yet.
We're not sure because it will happen in the future, but maybe it happens in the past when we upload it.
It's kind of like Schrodinger's cat. We don't know until it happens. So
We did put a cat in a box that has uranium in it.
And we have no idea the status of that one.
Yeah. on that topic of uranium cats, the cap is actually really rad. I bought it for this upcoming tour I'm going to be on for most of the rest of the year, where it's going to be really hot. So I bought this cotton linen blend, indigo dyed flat cap. That's like I believe this is kind of like a 1910s, like a kind of teens era.
Yeah, because I have a cap that's a pretty similar cut to that I got from also Damien, and he described it as like a 1910s European cut on his website.
It has quite a bit of fabric on it, but because I have long hair, it kind of like it proportionally it works.
Mm-hmm.
If I had short hair, I'd probably go for something a little slimmer cut. But I'm excited to have that for summer because he has like a rayon lining inside, so it can kind of breathe. And when I'm in like humid cities in the South, I can actually like wear a cap.
Yeah.
Keep my hair out of my face and mouth and stuff. So that's the cap. I've got on my it's actually on the chair over there, but I've got my Brooks Brothers Junior Watanabe collaboration 3-roll.
So good.
It's my favorite blazer, like by far. It's like triple patch pockets. It's got these gold, very like ivy buttons, but then it's got this camouflage lining, which is the kind of Junior Watanabe twist. Mm-hmm. It's just a great jacket. It fits incredibly well.
M. Night Shyamalan.
Sorry?
No, you said twist. M. Night Shyamalan.
I think you said M. Night Shyamalan.
Well, that's a reference to the cold open of an episode of The Office.
Oh, okay.
We
you guys
got you. We got you. There it is.
I should know that. I've been rewatching The Office. And then I have a late 50s, early 60s tie that I purchased at Monsivius as well, and a new OCBD in light blue by Kamakura Shirts. It's part of their
Vintage Ivy collection.
Which I absolutely love.
Yeah,
I bought it at the Bloke.
I also have one of those shirts. This is going to be an early plug. I have the denim one. I wear it all the time. It's great.
They're really great. I've been meaning to try them on forever, and I wasn't sure, because I know they aren't sized by neck. They're sized small, medium, large. So it's kind of like it's a crapshoot.
Yeah.
But it fits perfect because I don't have super long arms, and usually like American sleeves are too long, and then I have to go get them. These are perfect because in Japan they make the sleeves for a little slightly shorter arms, which works perfectly. And then I've got on some early 60s as well, like olive sportswear pants from Paper Moon. And
they're cool because the front half has a waistband and the back half does not, which is
it's very strange. It's like a Hollywood waist in the back and then a waistband in the front.
That's how I like my women.
Yeah.
There we go.
That a boy.
There we go.
And then I've got on my 2120 loafers, which are my favorite shoes. I'm sure we're going to talk about 2120
right
through the episode. So they're
and you just quick, you said tour. Why don't you remind our listeners what exactly you do?
So I'm a musician. I play guitar, and so I'm doing a world tour this year with Shania Twain. So we're going to be out for
Who's Shania Twain?
I'll send you links.
Okay,
I'll send you
gotcha.
Spotify links.
Cool.
But yeah, we're doing a world tour this year. We're going all over, and I'm really excited. So I'm kind of prepping my wardrobe for like a suitcase. So I'm like really kind of getting stuff together right now, where I'm trying to find like vintage items that are in good enough condition and not fragile enough that I can like travel with them, and trying to get stuff for summer like this Monsiváis cap. So that's been my focus lately. Yeah.
Cool. All right.
And then I'm gonna hand this over to.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Garret Gooch, and I promise this is my real voice. Let's start with just like the main piece of my outfit right now. It's a Stephen Allen suit.
Yeah, it looks
And
so good.
It's fun. It's real nice. It's kind of a taupe meets off-white seersucker.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of fun. It's light. It breathes really, really well. I've worn it in some heat, and it's been fine. I've worn it in the cold and just worn a little bit thicker of a shirt and an undershirt, and I've been just fine. I'm also wearing a chambray shirt. Real fun. I have that thing buttoned all the way to the tippity top, and I'm having a good time with it. I'm nice and cozy. And then the last little piece, actually, I have two pieces left. I am wearing a blue vintage 60s Dobbs hat that I got from Benny, my boy Benny.
I think we did mention that the last time when you
time.
on your solo episode.
So good, I wore it twice.
There you go.
And then the most important piece, 2120 handcrafted navy blue derbies.
Ooh.
One of a kind. It was a sample, and I was fortunate enough to beg Autumn on my hands and knees, please let me have these. And so
Did he let you have them?
yes, he did.
Out of pity.
Out of pity.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he just felt
Gotcha.
bad for me.
I was hoping that you said it's like, no, I had to steal them.
Yeah, that would have been, yeah.
Aram is
I
dead
stole
now. I have
from
to
my
murder
business
him.
partner. Don't work with me. Just kidding.
Please work with.
Please work with me.
Please work with me.
Yeah, please work with me. But this is, I promise, this is my real voice.
What I think is cool is that not only are you guys brothers, but you guys are a couple of the most well dressed guys we've ever met.
That's true.
And
You are brothers.
we are brothers. It's an interesting thing because like
it's an interesting thing, DNA and sharing.
Well, it's weird because like people don't often realize that we're brothers until we tell them, and then they have this like epiphany moment where they're like, "Oh, I totally see it," but like they didn't. Previous to us telling them, they didn't notice.
Did
at
you
all.
think that Spencer and I were brothers when you first met us?
Well, of course.
Yeah, just because of your sack jacks.
Yeah. Fun fact: I'm the only one in this room that does not have a brother, and will never know that bond.
Oh no!
So
This just took a sad turn.
So Spencer has a GoFundMe page to buy him a brother.
I need
Mail order
a brother
from Russia. Yeah. That's a thing, right?
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
I tried to join the Big Brothers program, but they were like, "Okay, you're the big brother." I'm like, "No."
I want the big brother.
I want to be the little brother.
Yeah.
And then they were like, "That's creepy. Leave."
But scale.
No, but I mean, just in the world of LA, we don't. I mean, Spencer and I just don't meet many well-dressed people, and it's kind of. And usually, if like you meet someone who is, maybe the brother's not, because my brother isn't into like menswear or fashion. I mean, he's dresses up. This is not a dig at my brother. He's fine. He's a cool guy. I love him, but he's not. He's not into it as much as we are, and it's just cool that you guys, based on your individual episodes that we've done, you guys have such a different approach, and yet now you both are into menswear.
Yeah, I'd say we definitely have like caught up to the same level of obsession with vintage and clothing and working in with people in the industry or being a part of things in the industry. We're definitely kind of at that same moment right now, whereas before there were different parts where it was like more me and then a little bit more of him in a certain area. It's unique that we are very much in the same place, interested in quite a few similar things, but definitely have our own taste and our own style.
Yeah, I think there's definitely moments there where like, and we talked about it kind of. I'm sure we talked about it individually on both of our episodes, but there was definitely a while there where Garrett's thing was fashion when I was doing music, kind of full, like it was just all I was doing, especially in like high school and kind of those years. And Garret was way into the fashion. I'd say my obsession kind of happened. I think I mentioned it when Garret came down and was staying with me, and we just kind of really bonded over that because it was like we were both living outside of our parents' house, And it was like I mean, we've always hung out a lot and skateboarded together and had a lot of similar mutual friends and stuff like that. But it took
friends. What's that like? I don't know.
It took like us both moving out and like being in LA together to like really have that like clicking experience. It was just different. I don't know how else to describe it. I don't know if there's
I think that oftentimes people feel pressured when they're living with family to be super close with their other family members and their siblings. And I think that
Spencer doesn't know what that feels like.
Yeah, I think that when you get outside of the home that you grew up in with other family around, you definitely have that decision to be close with somebody or not. And we had an opportunity to be living in a different area with different things going on. You know, we both were over 21 years old. We could just like go to concerts together, go thrifting and find a cool outfit for that night. It was a unique experience. You definitely get to choose how close you get to be later in life. And I think we were super lucky that we found becoming best friends when before we were just like, we were hanging out often because we were brothers. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of a cool thing to say.
Well, I think also like, I think we were feeling pretty uninspired by San Diego at the time. And it's not a knock on the city. It was more just that we had kind of been there.
Go fuck yourself, San Diego.
We'd been there a while, and like we were living in the suburbs where there wasn't a whole lot of like change. You know what I mean? Like when you're in a city like LA or New York or San Francisco or even Seattle, where we're originally from, like there's these kind of waves of motion of the city where like artistic people come in, venues come in, and in San Diego we kind of felt like at a certain point, I mean, Garret can speak for himself, I definitely felt like I'm glad that I grew up here, but I need to leave.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of rediscovery of like being brothers once we'd kind of like moved out and realized like, oh, we actually really like hanging out together. It's not just that we were forced to because we lived in the same house. You know, I feel like that was kind of a big realization that happened, at least definitely for me.
Yeah, and I think to go back to the note of San Diego has been uninspiring quite a bit to us, is we definitely grew up with people wearing the same thing from when they were like 5 years old to the exact same thing now. Like a lot of people that we know still wear Volcom graphic t-shirts, jeans that don't fit them, and then Vans with high Nike socks. And that's fine. Like people do their thing, they get cozy in their own thing. But when you're around people who are very much fine with like the conformity and just kind of sticking to things because they're worried about stepping outside of it and not seeming like a San Diego dude who loves, you know, California burritos and surfing, dude. We happen to be a part of the skateboarding scene. We both have skateboarded our whole lives, but we had our own.
Spencer and I do not skateboard at all.
Yeah,
I don't even know what a skate board is.
Yeah. We're gonna take him outside after this. I'm gonna teach him how to skate.
Beat me up.
I'm gonna beat him up.
We're gonna die.
The next podcast, Spencer will have a broken arm. It's most certainly it's raining outside and dark out, so it'll be a good time to just kind of take a board out for a nice, real quick spin.
A little QS, as they call it.
I
Yeah.
broke my arm.
That's a good impression of me.
That sounds a lot. That was a pretty dead-on Spencer in a moment of hysteria.
That was a not me voice, but this is back to me, Garret.
Were you telling me that was another person that came in the room here?
Ethan, you can see, like, you can see this. Our audience can't, but you can.
You're supposed to fool
Stop.
them. let's take a
hate
peek
this.
behind the curtain.
No, but to touch back on what Garret said, I think that's a super cool, you know, perspective to have, because I mean, people like to say like, oh yeah, Ethan lives in LA, you know, we're all in LA, but when you get to LA, there's so much, like, there's so many different areas of it. Like I live in Pasadena. Spencer is in
Fountain Valley,
the OC.
California. The OC. Don't call it that.
There you go.
But you know, like I'm like it's basically suburbs, and we don't get exposed to anything, you know. And the only time, like, I feel like I've experimented way more in, like, you know, the past year than I ever have before that, you know, before vintage and everything. Because like when I dressed up, it was all kind of very the same H&M stuff, gingham shirts, you know. And it's cool that, you know, when you think about where you live and, you know, how culture and arts kind of like flow and make you kind of try new things.
Yeah, and I think, we briefly talked about this before, which at those Gooch Collective events that you have been gracious enough to photograph and have taken such great documentation of the events, which we really appreciate.
Thank you very much.
Oh, there's your Elvis, that classic Ethan Elvis impression that we all know so well.
Classic Ethan.
My name is Elvis, baby.
Oh, I'm so glad that first time you did that was on a podcast. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's really good.
So like at those events, it was this weird mix of like all these. There's like this Japanese Americana look, and there's this Ivy looks, and there's some streetwear like LA looks, and there's some more rock style like leather jackets and black denim and all that stuff. And there was a pretty wide swath of inspiration that I know everybody was looking around going like,
Inspiration LA.
yes. Exactly.
That's another thing. Word association.
Well, it's weird. It's like one of those things where I think there's a couple of things going on where there's people looking around going like, oh, I'd love to try that. And then there's another side of it, which is that looks so cool on that guy. It's not my thing, but I love how it looks on them. And I was definitely noticing that where I was like, oh, that's not my thing, but that is dope.
Oh, yeah. That's my reaction to a lot.
Sometimes I weirdly like I look at those kind of things and I'm like, hey, I would love to do that, but put it like a menswear spin on it. Like I think I would see like Yohji Yamamoto like kind of like wide leg like crazy pants, and I'd be like, oh, I would do that, but then I would maybe like wear loafers or something with it. And I've definitely done that, and I've seen you guys kind of do something very similar. You guys take a lot of inspiration, and I think that hanging out with both of y'all have been like inspired me to kind of try new things. And we have, we've gone thrifting and we've gone doing crazy stuff, and
I haven't, because I've worked every time they do that.
Yeah, Spencer fucking sucks, guys. Let's be real here.
Okay.
I like Spencer. This is real Garrett here.
Oh, gotcha.
Thanks, Garrett.
Let me toss myself back over on that topic of the Gooch Collective. Josh was just talking about how like the different types of dressing and stuff. I think we should also kind of relate that to the idea of us being unimpressed with the nature of San Diego. At these parties, it's been super unique because we've got dudes who are like from Japan, haven't lived in the United States very long, have like this crazy style that they've developed from their geographic region, what they've read about, the movies that they've seen. We've got musicians there who are from all over the United States, some actually from different countries. And then we've got people who are photographers who aren't really into fashion but shoot some huge brands and are really fascinated by it, but maybe they're into architecture and that's not really their thing. There's a lot of different types of people and a lot of different types of style, and it's so interesting to see everybody come together because there is in fact that mutual respect where it's like, I don't know if I do that, but that dude looks sick. Yeah. And he should keep doing it. And then we all kind of tend to gravitate towards our friends' brands to support them, and out of nowhere a lot of us are wearing a common piece, like a pair of 2120 loafers or a hat by Damien or a hat by Wellama. It's really unique to see all this happen.
And I think one of the reasons that Ethan and I I hate just like shitting on the vintage scene, and I'm not, it's fun. But I think one of the reasons Ethan and I have been getting into the more contemporary fashion scene is because there's so many people in the vintage scene that don't really get that appreciation, while knowing that maybe that's not something you would wear, where they see something that they wouldn't wear and they say it's bad.
And that's that stuffiness that your podcast is trying to do without.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a pretty good tie-in right there.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Stuffy noses.
Yeah.
No congestion here. Wait, is that a new tagline that we can use?
It's probably good because it's not already taken by Comedy Bang Bang. So
we're good. So Earwolf and Stitcher whatever won't sue us.
Also, can we get sponsored by Ludens, because we all had a great throat lozenge before this, and our voices sound pretty darn good.
They're great.
Oh, they sound.
I want to thank Vaughn's for those sweet Ludens cherry
those sweet Ludens.
Equals jazz.
Okay, so we've mentioned the Gooch Collective I think a couple times already. So why don't we?
4 times.
Four times. Thanks for giving.
We love to force plugs.
Is that a force? As in you're saying 4? Is that what you were doing? Nice. Star Wars reference. The number 4 and then 4.
I don't mess around with these references, baby.
Yeah, you're a big referee. So nice. Thanks. Okay, so let's jump into that. Before we, our second half of the episode is going to be about thrifting and buying ethically, which is something that we all do. But let's talk about, since we got the two brothers here, let's talk about the Gooch Collective and exactly what it is. I know that it says bringing arts, community, I'm probably butchering it, but what is the tagline there?
I'll let Garrett throw the tagline in real quick, and then I want to talk about some of the Crescent stuff because I think that was us being around that. But go ahead and give them the kind of rundown of the overall event.
Yeah. So Gooch Collective, the whole idea is kind of the perfect combination of music, artisan craft, and community. I was very fortunate to put on some music festivals in college, and that really gave me this love for trying to build community where it really shouldn't be and doesn't happen often. Especially in LA, it's really hard to find positive communities. That's something that I really cared about. And then artisan craft, who doesn't like some super rad handmade shoes, handmade hats, clothing made by hardworking immigrants made in the United States of America? That stuff's tight. And then music. If you don't like music, you got a problem. I'm going to hand the mic to Josh so Josh can say a little bit more on something that we, I think, kind of just realized brought us to where we are today.
Yeah, like as I was handing the mic, I was like, oh, that was actually kind of a big point. Yeah. So as I previously mentioned in the other episode, when I started kind of thrifting and really getting like super heavy into menswear was when Garrett was in college. This is what, like 4 years ago?
Yeah, probably
about 4 years ago. So God, it feels longer. I think it might have been 5 years ago. Whatever. It actually doesn't matter to you guys at all. So Garrett was coming and staying with me during his summers, and I had this residency at this place called the Crescent at my friend Susan's hotel in Beverly Hills, and I had a weekly gig there that I would bring friends out and we'd play like blues and New Orleans music, and it was really fun. And I got Garrett a job running the social media for the hotel when he was staying with me. And I think that was kind of the inception of this concept, and when we started being like, we need to work together.
And when
on
Leonardo
this.
DiCaprio came out. And
I love Leonardo. This is Garrett, real Garrett. I love Leonardo DiCaprio.
And what does fake Garrett say about it? There we go.
He's not impressed. So we.
That's all he can say.
So I was having these events, and Garrett was working there, and I think that we kind of realized like, we want to do this and have more control over kind of all the aspects of it, because it was kind of like we were working in the same place, and that's where we realized like we should be doing that. We should be working together on something. And then we had just kind of talked for a long time about doing events. I knew Garrett was doing stuff up there. I talked about putting together like a big show or like a regular residency in LA. But there's so many music shows in LA, and there's so much great music. It's hard to keep that consistently going, and adding the other twists of this community thing and bringing the clothing brands in and having boba and having like all of this brand recognition, but like not in a douchey way where we're like trying to get like hashtags and sponsorships from like vodka brands and stuff. Like we want to actually showcase brands that make guitar stuff, brands that make clothing, that are making it by hand, and the people actually put love into it. And it's the same thing we try to do with the music at the show. It's all about like, if you're not going to put all your effort into it, just don't do it. Just don't do it, because otherwise you're half-assing it. And the event is about everything that's there is being done full tilt.
And to continue on with that story about us kind of halfway working together, working in the same space at that hotel, the Crescent Hotel in Beverly Hills, I was starting to think about essentially branding my work as a marketing consultant. And I ended up coming up with the idea of Gooch Collective with Adam, a guy that I consult with. And the idea was, it's just Garret Gooch and then the brands that he works with. But as I was driving home from selling some samples at the Rose Bowl, I was like, Gooch Collective, that's Josh and I. And so basically what happened was I called Josh. I was like, hey, the thing that we wanted to do with the music and the clothes and the stuff, let's do it. It's Gooch Collective. It's Joshua and Garret Gooch. And it was just kind of this weird thing where oftentimes you'll say something and you're going to be like, we're going to do that soon. We did it quickly. There's one thing I think that's a big part of our personalities that we learned from our parents. If we decide we're going to do something, we're going to fucking do it. And that was really tight for us to actually pull through with this, because I don't know if anybody knows, but it's a lot of work putting on these events. I have to coordinate with my brands. I've got to get the venue stuff. We got to work out the boba catering. Josh has to put together an entire like couple of sets of bands with different musicians, different music. It's so exhausting, but it's so worth it. Back to the community thing. It's worth it to build the community and to get people out there to have some fun.
Right. So why don't you try and like walk us through, putting one of these together? Because you did one at Wellama, you've done two now at the Rogue Collective in the Arts District. So what goes into it? What brands? How do you select the brands that you choose to feature? And I guess we can do music in a second. But if Garret wants to answer.
I mean, let's start with like the brand selection because we know we have to have brands there. Josh has got the music kind of covered, and he'll get onto that soon. Basically, I chose a few brands that I was already consulting with, because it helps me if I can get them some more sales. And also they fit seamlessly into this idea of LA menswear and just like being a kind person. And so, out the gate, Cody Wellama is a mutual friend of all of ours and an awesome dude. And cheers to him. He just had his baby with his lovely wife, Shelby. There's some claps going on in the background. And so, Cody out the gate, it was like, my guy, you're gonna do the first one, and we ended up using his space for the first one. And then we wanted to keep it small for the first event, so I just said, hey, Adam, let's set up a table outside and like a ladder and stack some shoes on it, and let's just sell right outside, and people can try them on and sit in a little chair and make it happen. Actually, we had the couch out on the street. That was pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And I remember that because I wasn't there because I had the flu.
So you remember it how?
Your Flickr page.
Oh,
the Flickr.
And the blog post.
Hey, follow Ethan on the Flickr.
And the blog post. Because it's like Cody afterwards, he like just slept on the floor because the couch was gone, right?
No, that was a joke.
That was a picture.
That was a picture?
Yeah.
Okay, to be fair, when Ethan told me that, he did tell me that as if it was real. He was like,
that's
he was so
he's
tired
the
afterwards.
funny guy.
Yeah, it's called comedy, my friend. Yes and. Have you ever heard of comedy?
No.
Well, what a sad existence.
That was the most condescending thing I think I've ever heard anyone say to another human.
Yeah. Comedy, ever heard of it?
Bitch.
No. No, I have not.
Yeah, but I mean, I went to that one. I think, like, by myself, kind of. My friend Andy came for a little bit. Cody and my friend, damn it, I say Andy and Adam.
Friend's name.
Andy and Adam. Okay, come on, like they're both
hey,
A
it's
names,
two A's,
double
eh?
A's, and like batteries. And but yeah, like I had some people come, but it was mainly like kind of just me. And I know you guys are both working, but I was able to kind of see all of it happening, and it was super cool. And I couldn't wait for you guys to do like the next one. And I know, I guess we can talk about music now, but I think when Josh called me like the day before, he was like, "This is gonna be a huge thing." And at first I was like, oh, this is? Like, I thought it was going to be like a very small, like, oh yeah, live music, just chill, there's hats and whatnot. But then he's like, hey, dude, you better get your ass to this event.
Yeah. Because it's one of those things, like, there's so many events in Los Angeles that
right.
I'm sure you see stuff on your Instagram feed all the time. You're like, oh, that sounds cool, but you're not like, oh, that's going to be like a thing.
Yeah.
And when I called you, I was like, dude, this is going to be absolutely ruling. And it's a lot more work, as Garret said, than just being like, hey, we're throwing a party, come hang out. It's like we're trying to like set up an environment meticulously that allows people to just have an immense amount of fun through art and community and all that stuff. But it's very meticulously crafted, like even schedule wise, of like how to make sure everybody has enough time to talk to each other, how to make sure that we can like get the musicians around other creative people that are not musicians, like essentially like just interact with people outside of their own worlds. And we really tried to like make the environment. I think Wellama was perfect for that because it was small enough that people could make that human connection through just eye contact or kind of groove into the music together.
What's human connection? Okay. I don't know what that's like.
Rainbow Connection.
Kermit the Frog here.
Can you guys do Rainbow Connection at the next one? Perform that?
Yes, we're doing it in its entirety.
Perfect.
And then, I think, Garret, you should probably talk about the next event, and then I'll talk about the music. Yeah. The one we just had.
Yeah, so we were very fortunate, thanks friends and friends of other friends, that we packed out Cody's spot. And so I ended up calling my friend Colin of the Rogue Collective in the Arts District. He owns a really, really cool shop down there, men's, women's stuff, bunch of cool accessories. It actually used to be a famous venue called Al's Bar.
Oh, wow.
The Chili Peppers, Beck, Green Day, a bunch of super rad bands played there, like Bowie even. Before a lot of
Who's
them
David
were very
Okay.
famous.
You threw in the
You
first
know the
name
bow,
that you didn't
dude.
mention.
You know the bow. You know the bow. And so I called my friend Colin. I said, "Hey, dude, I got this thing going on." He's like, "I saw all the photos. I wasn't able to make it. What's going on?" I was like, "Can it go on with you?" And he was like, "Of course." And so we were really fortunate that he was willing to take this on, just because, when you have a shop, you really have to be cautious with what goes on there.
Oh, yeah.
And
You're telling me you can't have a shop and just like let it self-govern?
I kind of like that idea.
You're describing a commune right now.
Yeah, that's a commune.
Yeah.
That's a commune. That's out of hand.
Or cooperative. Co-op.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cooperative.
That's how I play my video games.
Cooperative, like REI. REI sponsor us. Give us some Danner boots. Those are nice. So, anyways, Colin was kind enough to take this on. It was mostly because we had a pre-existing thing going on, because he is actually selling their in-house Made in USA line on the website that I'm a co-founder of, that you would have already heard in my previous episode where I talked about the website Ziggy, the website that I'm a co-founder of. So, anyways, Colin was like, "Yo, we're down. Let's have this thing." And so for this one, I was actually able to have more than one excess brand, other than the in-house brand. So Cody wasn't able to make that one, baby things. Babies are important.
Just baby things.
Just baby things. And so I was really, really excited, because I knew I wanted to invite our friend Kosuke of Clutch Golf. That dude is so hardcore.
He's fun.
I think we
And
talked about him on
the last.
Swag.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
a swag king.
So good.
He's just a really nice guy. Everybody loves him, and he shows up. Like, he brings his stuff. It looks good, and it is made here in LA. It's good stuff.
And he sells kind of like, vintage inspired golf luxury wear kind of thing, like a reinterpretation. It's really cool. You guys should check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quick plug.
I'm sure they're gonna toss a link somewhere. And so Kosuke was a pick. He was a top pick. We wanted him in there. 2120, my boy, one of the clients that I work with, he was of course going to be in there too. And then a new fun one that actually wasn't really a part of the scene, but is super stoked that now he is Raga Man. This guy Sahil Chaudhry, the Chaudhry family, they own this company called Raga. There's a women's line that's fairly big and has been around for a couple of years, but the men's line's new. And so my friend Bradley, he is the guy who runs their photo studio, does all the content creation, does all kinds of awesome stuff for them, building the brand out. He gave me an intro to Sahil. Their stuff is now being sold on Ziggy, or will be sold on Ziggy. And I told him, I said, "Hey, in the interim, man, as we're getting you logged onto the site, do you want to come out and be a part of this pop-up and meet a bunch of our friends and try to sell some men's and women's stuff?" Anyways, he came out, sold quite a bit, and we just kind of brought him right into the community. And that was so cool for me to see, because in the space that they're in, they make hyper ethically created stuff. Like their family owns the factory in Rajasthan, in India. Everything's like hand loomed, hand block printed, like just crazy awesome stuff. But they're never really in this specific scene that we're kind of creating. And man, they were stoked, because a lot of times with those companies, they get invited to bigger things like Revolve parties and stuff, where things tend to be just not fun and made of plastic. And what we were doing at the Gooch Collective was raw, and it was great.
Just raw dogged it.
Raw dog.
So, sorry, really quick, 2-part question. So while we're still, let's stick with a close for just 1 second.
Sorry, Josh.
Yeah, Josh was holding the microphone and I felt bad. But
hello.
So first of all, this might date it too much, but are you planning on keeping it at the Rogue Collective? Is that going to be kind of home base? Are you going to move locations?
Well, as we said earlier, they did 2 at the Rogue Collective now, because this is coming out a little bit later.
Okay.
So I guess we'll find out what happens next, baby.
But then
I can't give you everything.
Okay, you have to buy the book.
You got to buy the book.
But are there
available on Amazon.
Are there any brands you could talk about that are going to be involved in the future that maybe aren't right now?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few people that are also going to be on the Ziggy website. People that I have pre-existing relationships with, and they trust me, and I trust them. I'm not going to throw any names out there right now, but I'll just say
you gotta read the book.
You gotta read the book. I'll just say that it's going to be a lot more complimentary brands that are very handcrafted and just obsessively produced.
And you said so they're going to be like, you've done 2 at the Rogue Collective now, right? And so for the do you know where you're going to have it, in the future, or is it always going to be like at a store? Or do you think you're maybe rent out a warehouse space or something like that?
Honestly, the way Josh and I look at everything is the sky's the limit. We want to maintain.
So the next one's going to be in the sky.
It's going to be in the sky. Yeah, we're going to do it on a big plane.
Sounds fucking awesome.
With Elon Musk of SpaceX.
Elon Musk. We're sponsored by Tesla. Thanks for my new car.
Yeah, the next event is Gooch Collective collab with SpaceX, where we're gonna be
Gooch Collective X SpaceX.
Yes, exactly.
You're gonna be the first people sent to the Mars colony.
Yes,
yeah,
and
of course.
we could easily die, but like he said, like we're going for this.
Party hard. The sky's the limit. So, back to the sky's the limit idea. Josh and I, we really like what's going on right now. We really like the reaction. We love that our friends.
And it's cold reaction.
We got a good reaction, man. We love that our friends are feeling welcomed into certain communities that they oftentimes wouldn't be welcomed into, just because the fashion scene in LA can sometimes be quite harsh. The music scene can also be quite othering, And so we want to maintain our integrity. We want to maintain how organic things are, but we would like to grow this. Our main thing is that we have seen so many friends have such a good time, and we just want more people to feel that way. It's as simple as that.
We had a great time.
And that makes
a lot of fun.
And the thing is, you guys have been friends with us for a little while now and have been around some of the things going on, and we've been around, and we've had a little bit of fun elsewhere. There's other people who haven't really experienced any of all of us yet, and I'm so excited to bring more people on. I don't know if there's like a capacity. I don't think there is, but dude, I mean, at a certain point, I would love to, with Josh, be able to rent, a huge warehouse space and have 500 to 1,000 people in there, tons of brands that I represent, like food trucks inside of there, a huge stage, publications there. We broadcast it online. I want people, and Josh does too, we want people to feel the way people felt at these small intimate events. We want them to feel that way even at a big event. So I think the main thing with us is we want to scale organically. We don't want to just bump it up. Yeah. And so we're going to use the connections that we have. We're going to use our positive energy, and we're going to use our contacts.
Pause ends, as they call it.
Pause. We're going to use our slight pause energy, and we're going to try to create something that's rad and also sustainable. We want to do these every month, and we're gonna keep it that way. We're gonna keep it popping.
That's very ambitious, by the way. I can't believe, I remember after Wellama, he goes, "Oh yeah, we're gonna do it next month." I'm like, "Holy shit!" Really? It took me like a day and a half to edit the pictures, and then I took even more pictures at the Gooch.
And you're like, "This is gonna be my life now, every goddamn month."
That's kind of cool, though. I mean, honestly, hanging out with you guys and doing the podcast, it's given me and Spencer something to kind of look forward to.
Fun.
Every weekend, there's been something happening. It's been really cool.
It's been really fun.
It's been really
super
fun.
excited about it.
Yeah, baby.
And the nice thing, like Garrett was saying, there kind of is no ceiling as long as Garrett and I keep an eye on
not even a glass
who
one
is involved. You know what I'm saying? Who are the brands? Who are the people shooting the musicians? Who are the people photographing the event? And Garrett and I want to keep an eye on that all the way up through it. So there's no kind of sour grapes sneaking into this idea.
No grapes of wrath at all.
No
Steinbeck.
Like Garrett was saying, there's so many events in LA that the whole point of the event is to make people feel like
Garrett's doing mimicking selfies and stuff
you know
like
what
that.
I mean?
Yeah.
It's a bunch of people just showboating. They aren't inviting. The whole point is to just show off what you have, and that's all bullshit. And I'm sure we'll talk about that.
BS, I think, is what they say.
It's yes.
We don't like to fucking swear.
I'm not a big fan of cussing.
Jeez, another one with the cussing.
I know. But when we talk about how, what you contribute now, you're in charge of the music side of it, and what you've mentioned before is that these guys that you bring on have worked with some other great musicians, other great bands, and everything like that.
Yeah, so almost everybody that I hire on are either personal friends of mine or kind of like acquaintances, and even some people that I've straight up called up that I didn't know, that I had recommended from people that I trust musically, and they just said, call this guy. He's awesome. He would love to do this. So there was people that I just called up out of nowhere. The first event at Wellama was all people that I knew and like really trusted because it was the first event.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've had people from Neil Young's band, Ben Folds' band, Norah Jones, Ziggy Marley. Like,
who's Ziggy Marley?
Oh,
Okay.
jeez.
This might not be a joke because Ethan doesn't really know much about music outside film scores.
Hey, have you guys heard of a little guy I like to call the Beatles?
One time I played a Rolling Stones album and Ethan said, I don't think I've ever heard a Rolling Stones song before.
Okay, to be quite fair though, what I meant was I probably have heard a Rolling Stones song, I just didn't know it was them.
That doesn't make it
Okay,
better.
when they play songs on the radio, this reflects really badly
this is
on
Ethan's
me.
radio corner.
But like when people
DJ,
play,
you say the name of the song.
yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like there are some people out there who don't know all the music people.
If
So
you think a lot of people are in their car going like, I didn't know these were Beatles songs, and agreeing with you, that's not happening.
I feel so alone.
But then Ethan does that like, oh, name this, song from a movie, and I never know unless it's like
Come on,
Star
dude.
Wars. So
Not every movie is Star Wars, okay?
So with the musicians, like basically everybody that's coming out, they're essentially, they have the same job I do in a sense, which is we're hired guns. We get hired by artists to
Shoot
play
people
on their tours, or we get hired to play on people's albums.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of session musician, hired gun, touring guys. And they're really like that job. I'm going to extricate myself from this. These are some of the best musicians in the world. I know, a lot of people that just show up at the event, if you're not really immersed in the music community, you don't really know like who these sidemen are. But like, there's a reason that people like Ziggy Marley and Neil Young are hiring these people. Like, they can literally choose anybody in the world. They have a ton of money. They can literally pick whoever they want, and they're picking these people, and they're really special. And I feel incredibly fortunate to get to work with these people.
Can you name some of those people? I know I've met just casually taking a picture of you guys, but
Yeah, so some of the people at the last event, Adam Levy was one of the guitar players. Adam has played with Norah Jones and Tracy Chapman. He's played with all of these different local musicians who are unbelievable. He plays jazz, he plays rock, he plays everything. He's an unbelievable musician, and that was our first time playing together, and it was so much fun. And we had on the other guitar player was Mason Stoops, who's just absolutely killing on guitar and is becoming just like a rising star in the guitar community, and is a good buddy of mine. And he came out, and we had other musicians like Why Not was one of the bass players from the last event and played in the George Harrison set. He's one of the guys that I literally never met.
Oh wow!
I talked to one of the players, Mark Stepro, who was a drummer on the first Gooch Collective event, and I said, who can do that kind of Paul McCartney bass thing, which is a kind of rare style of bass playing? And he just gave me his name. He's like, call this guy, he'll love to do it. And he came out and just absolutely killed it, because we don't do any rehearsals. Basically, the way this event works is like, I pick a couple artists. Like the last Gooch Collective was George Harrison and the band. So that's not one name. The band is the name of a band. I know that's super confusing.
it could, to be honest, it confused me when you told me.
It's like, it's one of those things where like every time I explain anything about quote unquote the band, I have to explain. I'm like, no, that's the name of the band, and then that's confusing in and of itself.
Do you
You could
guys
also just make it easier on yourself and say the band called the band.
Do you guys remember?
Sure.
Did you guys ever see that sketch on Animaniacs where it was like the old squirrel at Woodstock and they were doing a Who's on First routine except about the band The Who? So
I have actually seen that.
Yeah.
I have. It's one of those. It's like this circuitous thing where like you never get to an understanding.
yeah, because I saw that before I knew what The Who was, because it was like I watched Animaniacs like when I was coming home from like second grade.
are we talking like the
Well-
Doctor, or are we talking like the Horton?
the rock
No,
band.
it's
but
the-
well, here's another one that happens all the time. There's another band from the same time period called the Guess Who.
Yeah.
And that's another
It gets
dad
confusing.
joke that gets tossed around with the kind of the Who and like and then it's like so yeah, the last event was those two artists, and basically what we've been doing is we do 1 hour of each of those artists, but we do instrumental versions of their songs. This upcoming Gooch Collective, which when this is released is going to be in the past, is now we're bringing in vocals. So we're going to have half vocals, half instrumental coming up. So it's kind of this evolving thing. Like every time we do an event, both Garrett and I on our ends find things that we want to improve, find things that we want to change. The first Gooch Collective event, we did like 4 different artists and sets of music, which was just too many.
Yeah.
There's too much turnover, so we knocked it back to 2, and then we're going to kind of stick with that. So we're learning in the process. We haven't had any like big snafus of shit that went like incredibly wrong, but we have had little things where like, yeah, we'd love to do this, we'd love to start at this time more, we'd love to introduce this at this time, and we're just learning as we go, like carefully constructing the kind of perfect event, and allowing for improvisation within the night as well, whether it's musical or just like last show I called Garrett up to dance and just was like, hey band, we're playing a hip hop Dilla groove in A minor, go. And Garrett got up and did some like James Brown shit, and the fucking audience lost their mind. And that was completely unplanned. Like I'd briefly brought it up to Garrett as a potential idea weeks before, but like it was one of those things where we want it to be open for that as well. And so yeah, it's been amazing. And the musicians, we have even more musicians that are coming up on this next event, and it's just a blast to get to play music with some of the best players in the world, and get to introduce people that are maybe not interested and have never heard of quote unquote the band.
Yeah.
And then they just are all of a sudden sitting there getting to listen to these ridiculously talented musicians play this music, and hopefully it gives them an in where they, who knows, they might go home and listen to that. That actually happened with Ethan.
It did, yeah. I think like after the last one, I was like, hey, dude, you got to introduce me to some good music, and we've been listening to
Steely Dan.
I was gonna say Iron Dan for a second, but I guess I was
Iron
wrong.
Dan.
That's Iron Man, and that's not it.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
But even after that first event, you were like, what was that song? It
Yeah,
was a J.J.
exactly.
Cale
So-
song, and you were like, I've never heard, I don't even know what to call that, but I loved it.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
it's been this is a testament. It's coming from me. So
Well, that's exactly what that's the perfect thing though. Like, especially if you're not somebody who's into like a bunch of kind of classic bands, you're not going to know who J.J. Cale is, and you're not going to know the song Magnolia. Like,
Nope.
it's kind of a deep cut, but it's one of those
That's a
things
flower.
where you hear it and you're like, that is beautiful.
Yeah, because
that song is gorgeous.
Like at the last one, I'm terrible with names. It was something Mason and something Stoops.
that's
Mason Stoops is one guy.
Mason Stoops is one guy.
That's one guy.
Mason Stoops is one, and
Mason-
Adam Levy is the other.
Adam Levy, because they were doing like an instrumental, like it seemed kind of like almost like Les Paul style.
Yeah.
Style
they
thing.
They recorded a duo album together. They play weekly at a coffee shop and have been doing that just as kind of like a prep, and then they did an album.
Yeah.
And they asked me, because they were both playing that night, they're like, hey, do you have any time for us? I was like, well, look, we've got this 20-minute slot before the band, not the band, before the George Harrison set and the full band happens. And I was like, if you guys want to come out and open the show, it would be a perfect way to just, before there's this whole loud thing happening, it's like 2 guitar players playing beautiful instrumental music together.
Yeah, but no, I loved it. Now, the album hasn't been released, right?
It has not. They were super ambivalent. I think they're trying to create some sort of folklore about their album.
Because
you can go see them in Pasadena on
Wednesday
like
morning.
Wednesday morning, and I
8:30 in the
can't
morning.
remember the name of the coffee shop. But
Call,
look,
like John's Coffee Shop, something like that. Just
Jo-
go on Adam Levy's Instagram or on Mason Stoops' Instagram.
Yeah, but I am definitely looking forward to that album. It was great.
yeah,
Great set.
and that was, once again, that was a thing where the week before the event, or a week and a half before, they were like, hey, can we do this? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And it was a last minute thing, and it totally ended up working out. And the boba situation there was kind of the same thing.
And the nice thing about them kind of warming up the stage and doing something very soft and not crazy, before we really turned up the amps, was that it gave me an opportunity to kind of walk around, and as people came in, I could mingle with them, introduce them to the designers and the owners of some of these companies. It was very cool, calm, and collected. It was nice. That was one of those things where you kind of roll with it. And this one, us just kind of adding them to warm up the stage, made the entire event better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it was just kind of that gradual arc of intensity of the night went up, and they were so great. I'm so glad that they came in and did that. It was really, really awesome.
Yeah, no, we had a fun time.
Fun time.
A little FT, as I like to call it. But yeah, that was super cool. Thank you for sharing about the Gooch Collective. I know that we've been wanting to have both of you guys on together. And, you guys can follow at Gooch Collective on Instagram to get, more. I know the individual Instagram accounts will plug at the end, but you can follow them and you'll learn more about these as they come out, because they're every month, right?
Every month. I'm going to be leaving to go on tour.
That's right.
Garret and I have already been talking about a way of maintaining the same general idea. Mm-hmm. Things will be a little bit different. The music will be slightly different, but the events will continue on. I'm going to do as much as I can from the road to kind of do any kind of assistance that I can on the musical end of things. And Garrett's going to keep bringing in brands, and we're going to keep this thing going. So when I get back to tour, I'm going to jump right back in. And like Garret said, like we want to build this thing to the point where we can kind of do anything we want with it. And it's absolutely huge, but without sacrificing what makes it great. Because you see this happen all the time with clothing brands and musicians and everybody. It's like at a certain point they start sacrificing like what makes them cool and what gives them their inherent
authenticity,
and without that you're nothing. So we're looking to maintain that for as long as we can, and we're really focused on doing that.
It's super cool that you guys do it, because I don't think Spencer and I would have ever have heard or even be invited. I mean, I'm sure that there are fashion and music events all the time, in LA, but having you guys do it this way is like, it's so tangible for us, and we've brought our friends to it who not necessarily are they're not into fashion as much as we are, or they're not into music or whatever, but they love going. I'm inviting my other friends that we all met last night at the barcade, I think is what they was that what they say? Oh yeah, the little BA. And so I'm glad you guys are doing it.
And that's exactly what we want. This is word of mouth. This is a friend telling a friend telling another friend. We're not trying to build it out in a disingenuous way, like we were talking about. The way you can pack out a place is you can buy ad space. You can market to people within a certain geographic region, within a certain age range, certain occupation, average household income. You can do these things. You can pay money to just get a bunch of people there. But what would it be?
Yeah.
What would it be? What we want is we want our rad friends to invite more rad friends. We want to keep this to a tight-knit group that grows organically and maintains its integrity.
That's a good way to end this first segment. Thank you guys for telling us about that.
Cheers.
Cool. So we're going to be taking a quick break right now, and afterward we'll be talking about thrifting and ethical consumerism, just because we all like menswear and fashion, and we'll be...
Let's get ethical.
Ethical. We'll be right back. Hi guys, welcome back to Style and Direction. It's a menswear podcast about the stuffiness. We just finished our first segment, and in this segment we're going to be delving into our topic, which is about thrifting, ethical consumerism, and basically, how we approach buying clothes. Now, I can't speak for everyone here, but I know that when we talked to all just a few episodes ago, we learned that Ethan's he's hungry. He's got a huge appetite.
Hold on. Was that on the podcast, or was that the after conversation?
Oh shoot. Secret lore.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so let's add some context. So if you guys go back and listen to that one, and if it's not there, after we finished the podcast, Spencer and I and all we just kept talking.
We were just shooting the shit.
Yeah, we're just taking, shooting it, and we were talking about why we spend money on vintage when we could be buying like one really great suit, and. Again, I can't speak for everyone here, but for me, I like having like 3 suits. Now, I'm not saying that I would I wouldn't prefer like a perfectly pristine suit, but I like having options, and the way I go around that is by thrifting, buying on eBay, buying secondhand, buying it off of friends, and all that kind of stuff.
As a listener, this was on the podcast.
Oh, thank God.
Yes.
Thank God.
Yeah,
Okay,
no, I
cool.
listened to that whole podcast.
Did the Hunger Sinister thing, was that on there? Because I remember all just saying...
this whole thing about how he loves McDonald's and he hates steak.
I don't think that was on there.
But, people make the false equivalence that like, even though I did bring this up, it was like, do I want to spend like $100 on like a really good steak or get like an unlimited fries at some random restaurant? But like I'm hungry, man. And the same thing with like, with clothing. And it's not that I'm buying like super cheap H&M clothing. I'm still buying quality made stuff for just a lot more affordable prices. I won't say it's like cheap. I don't really like saying that too much. But again, it allows me to have like a big wardrobe that I can mix and match, however I want it. And I'm not a big fan of minimalist stuff. And, then having that mindset, it kind of brings it to like, well, then you're being like, you're super capitalist, you're buying into consumerism and all that kind of stuff. And so that's why we want to delve in here and kind of talk about, how we all have it. Because we all have a lot of clothes, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, baby.
Oh, yeah. If you looked at all of our clothes, I think we all have like, I don't know. We all do
at least 3 clothes.
Collectively,
at least 4 things.
We're insane.
Yeah.
I mean, from the outside, we do look like organized hoarders.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of where the key distinction there is. I do have a ton of shit, but I try to keep it meticulously organized so I at least know where things are.
Yep. And because it's like, the whole reason, like, I don't think my hunger is as insatiable as Ethan's.
And it's quite insatiable.
Because, like, I'm fine. Like, he's like, I want, like, like 5 pairs of gray pants, where I'm like, I have like a couple pair, like 2 different shades of gray. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Out of all 50.
Not Shades of Grey by Michael Cohen, by the way, if anybody was wondering. Just nice. Shades of Grey trousers.
But like the reason I thrift is because like I'm broke as fuck. Like I work part-time minimum wage, and like anything over like $100 I have to like really think about. So that's my main reason for having to thrift.
Necessity.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, dude, here's the thing. A lot of us start with this stuff because of necessity. I mean, I really dove into this one in my personal podcast with y'all. Was I didn't have a bunch of money to buy all the fancy things that I saw on the interweb when I was looking up things when I was getting into fashion. And so what I could do was go to a bunch of vintage stores and walk around for hours and try on a million things that didn't fit me at all.
Yeah.
And then find something that fit me just not that bad, and I'd buy it. Of course, now, like, I get certain things tailored, and I also sew myself, and I do a little bit of tailoring to my own clothing. But back then, I couldn't really do anything. You just have to search your ass off out of necessity.
Mm-hmm. And I think another, I guess we're diving into the thrifting thing.
Yeah, we'll do that first, yeah.
Okay. Because I think for Garrett and I, on top of what he just mentioned, where, it's the financial thing, especially when you're young, it was also our parents very much were an influence on us as far as find out a lot about something so you know what you're buying, and then go find the good stuff. It's kind of this like knowledge factor of you can get good stuff for a good price if you know what to look for. And that was kind of where Garrett and I came from, because our family wasn't a family that would just spend on bullshit. Like it was really frowned upon by our parents to just like spend money on just stuff you ultimately could have found for a better price. You could have, have learned more about it and bought a brand that you weren't paying for the label, but it was equally as good. Or, so I think that was another factor for us, was going in and just thinking about the fact of like, we can outsmart the system, because these places that sell the clothing just have like young workers that work there who most of them don't know jack shit about anything, let alone clothing. They're just minimum wage workers for the most part. A lot of these kind of, I don't want to say vintage shops, but more just kind of like, Wasteland or Crossroads or whatever. A lot of them are just young people that want a job and they like clothes, so they get a job there. They're the ones buying this stuff in, and they have no idea when they pull in some like dead stock pair of like military khakis from the 40s, and
or like Tom Brown's shit,
or Tom Brown stuff, and like And so that's where that comes from. Like, we go in and go, like, they don't know what they have, and we know. And I just found a, $2,500 suit for $200.
That's mine, baby.
Like, that's the kind of the holy grail. So it kind of goes back to the thing we were talking about before, where it's these LA parties where people want to show off how rich they are. For us, that goal for us was like, how do we find things that we weren't supposed to find? How do we you know what I mean? Like the treasure of it, of like knowledge and hunting. That is kind of the goal, rather than like showing that, look, I can buy this expensive thing. Because like most people that are really rich have awful style.
Yep.
And most of the people that I know have the best style are thrifters. And they have the most original style, I think, because it's out of necessity. If you don't know what to look for, you are just looking through a giant bin of stuff. Mm-hmm. If you walk into a Goodwill and you can't date, that's a 70s Brooks Brothers jacket, and this is a 50s, a 50s jacket, I can tell by the button stance, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
That is how you can go in and like really find the stuff. And if you don't have that knowledge, you're just kind of wandering. And it can be really overwhelming. It takes years of a lot of practice. I'm sure Garrett can attest to that, and you guys can too.
I'd love to definitely hop back into what Ethan said before about how I can buy one really expensive thing, or I can get quite a bit of stuff that's thrifted. Takes a little bit of time to get. Also, I think that comes down to what's really going on in the world in production right now. Mm-hmm. I think we should dive a little bit into that. Because the truth is, pre, 67, a lot of the clothes in the world were damn good. Mm-hmm. They were made on beautiful sewing machines. They were made by people who were happy getting living wages. A lot of the clothes were rad, and they were meant to last a long time. The truth is that as we move towards where we are currently, quality has just gone down. And so what's going on is there is a larger separation now between the low clothes and the high clothes. Way back then, slop cloth, which is what it was called, stuff that had already been pre-assembled and made, small, medium, large, that was like for poor people, slop cloth, right? Slop cloth is normal for us now. We just go out and buy small, medium, large and hope that it fits us okay, right?
The cloth is worse than the old slop cloth was.
Yeah. Exactly, and the cloth is way worse. And then back then, if you weren't buying slop cloth, you were getting everything custom made suits and custom made trousers, and it was amazing. So where we are right now is you can buy slop cloth, but literal garbage clothing from places like H&M that are made by arguably young kids who shouldn't be on sewing machines, or people who aren't getting enough money to actually give their family a real life and not be suffering. You can buy that garbage, or you can buy something that's thousands and thousands of dollars that honestly might not even be that great. You might just be buying it because the name associated with it is making you spend so much money, because it costs so much money for them to market how cool they are. That's not worth it. So now let's move back to vintage. What we're doing right now is we're buying the stuff that was made well back then. And the truth is, it's just as good, if not better, than the good stuff you can get custom made right now.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the truth, man. The way we used to weave fabrics, how meticulous the sewing was, everything matters. We're buying the stuff that was made well back then.
Well, because also, people were, especially during the Great Depression, people could not afford to get a new suit every 3 or 4 years. You look at old photos, and if the details of the history of tailoring, you can look at a photo from 1950 and say it's that guy's wearing a suit from the early 30s, something like that, because they kept that shit forever.
And it was made to last forever, exactly, as well. Right. Yeah.
But I think, to kind of hop on what Garrett was talking about, is that, back then, I think fashion wasn't exactly something that everyone was into. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was only for rich people, or young people. But you bought one suit, and that was your business suit, that was your wedding suit, it was your funeral suit, whatever. And then nowadays, you've got guys like me who have a suit for every single thing that you want, or just but jeans for anything that you want, and that's what drives the whole thing of where you get jeans for $20 because then you can buy like 5 that were cheaply made because then you can wear them however many times you want. And you can be trendy. You can get them different cuts and whatnot.
Well, and the really ironic thing here is that all of our wardrobes, for the most part, I think, whether they're vintage or secondhand or thrifted or whatever, there's. I think what brings it together is the fact that it's secondhand. Like it's something that was pre-owned by somebody else or something like that. We can actually have these big, meticulously crafted wardrobes that we love and cherish and appreciate the craftsmanship, and yet they still cost less than what people are spending at H&M to buy trash.
Oh yeah,
that's the craziest thing. Is I can go, man, I'm wearing this whole outfit that if you actually like delineated the actual cost that it would be like for this all new would just be astronomically priced. And then I'll see somebody else that's wearing all H&M and I'm like, this actually cost me like $150 for everything I'm wearing. And it's like, you know, vintage Florsheim Imperial dress, like wingtips and like these amazing trousers that were like made of like 100% wool and were like hand stitched. And like, it's amazing that we can have these wardrobes that we really appreciate so much, and yet we're still spending less, and we're not causing the same issues of the environment of production that's going on with all this H&M stuff. I don't mean to single H&M out; they're awful, but there's a lot of other ones that are awful too.
Forever 21.
Yeah, Zara, the whole thing. It's like they're all just they're just crushing the planet one shirt at a time.
Yeah. I think what we just noticed right here is the accidental perfect segue of talking about thrifted things to talking about conscious consumerism.
Oh, yeah.
And it's funny because Josh doesn't work in the conscious consumerism space. I do. And I love hearing this happen because Josh is the perfect case study for this, for what people should try to do. And if they don't have the opportunity to thrift things, buy from companies who are creating things ethically. That means either made in USA production or, you know, hyper ethically made goods that are made abroad. People are doing great things in places like China where most things are bad. People are doing beautiful things on communes in India where they're feeding families, educating children, giving them childcare, feeding them. There's farms, organic cotton. It's good things are going on in the world. And if you don't have the time to go out and search like we do, there are so many opportunities to buy things from really great companies that might have a little bit of an intimidating price tag when you're comparing it to Forever 21.
Right.
But I promise that pair of jeans will last you longer than the 10 pairs of jeans you're going to buy in the meantime. Buy it right out the gate.
Buy it from Ziggy.
And buy it from Ziggy, baby.
And you know, if you're not the type of person that's like us, that's way into menswear and is willing to spend the time and enjoys spending the time looking at thrift shops and looking at vintage shops and all these things we talked about, you can have a really quality smaller wardrobe from these types of companies where if you do go out and buy stuff from, like we mentioned 2120 Handcrafted or like the Teenaged or Knickerbocker or there's a bunch of these really great companies, the Hillside's another company, there's so many of them, that you could have a really great small wardrobe that's made ethically, that's not crazy price tags. Like none of the companies I just mentioned are charging a lot for, especially for what they are. Now, in comparison to trash at the mall, it's actually still not that much steeper than that, but it is a little bit more. But that, I think we need to push people in that direction of like taking that step of going, I'm going to spend $75 more on this pair of jeans, but in the long run, it's going to save me money, and I'm going to feel better about the fact that I'm buying ethically. And I know just human nature is just kind of leads towards the immediate gratification. It's just the way that the human mind works. But the more awareness we have of like, this stuff does matter, and if you just make minor changes to your purchasing habits, you could greatly affect the world, as well as construct a wardrobe that you can be proud of as well. And it can be small. You can have one pair of jeans, one or two pairs of dress trousers, a couple, like you can have a really small wardrobe like Aldous talked about last week. Like, now granted or maybe that wasn't last week now, but his episode, now granted he's very into menswear and he's willing to look for stuff, but at the same time he said that like he essentially has a uniform idea of what he looks like. He has a couple variations, but that's pretty much it. And there can even be a lesser point where you're not as interested in menswear, but you still have that kind of uniformity of like, I like boots, I like selvage denim, and I like t-shirts because I live in LA and it's hot.
Yeah.
And I like to wear a cap, so why don't I buy like an Ebbets Field cap instead of a new era cap that's made in China? It's like little changes like that. Like Ebbets Field caps are actually not even more expensive than a new era cap.
They're $50.
And they're made actually about 4 minutes from our parents' house in Seattle. And like we go in and talk to humans that are making these hats, and they are awesome. I have a huge collection of Ebbets hats. I think that they're fantastic. They're all made ethically, and you're not even breaking the bank any more than you would to buy a new, New York Yankees hat or whatever you're into. Like, it's these types of just slight changes that don't actually have a long-term effect on your wallet. They might have a just at first you might be like, oh, I'm not used to spending that, but that's because most people are used to buying dumpster feed for clothing.
And because I could be talking out of my ass right now because I don't know how the industry works.
Let's talk it out.
I have because I also imagine that the profit margins for companies like H&M, even though they're selling clothes that are cheaper, they probably have like higher profit margins because they're selling a pair of jeans for like maybe $40. It probably like labor, materials probably cost them like, maybe less than 10, something like that. But then you get to like, companies that are producing like jeans with like really high quality fabrics. They're paying people fair wages, stuff like that. Like I bought a pair of teenage denim. I can't wait to receive them in the mail. Haven't yet. For $60. And I'm like, you're probably not making a whole lot of money off that sale, but yeah.
But yeah, it's like now, but it's also a product of, they had overstock from their past season, and I think actually everybody here ordered a pair, right?
Yeah.
Everybody here.
Yep.
We all ordered a pair. Garrett's the only one that has his.
Yeah, baby. I got him first, baby. Yeah.
And they look fantastic, and they're once again, it's like this idea of they're a company that's based on vintage ideals as far as like the making of the products. It's even vintage inspired from a design perspective, but there is modernity involved in it. There's modernity in the way that they use social media. I know you guys talked about that on Garrett's episode. I think the Teenage is doing a great job with that, and I want to say another shout out to Knickerbocker because they're a company that, I mean, a lot of these people that work there are like really close to our age, like all of our ages here, and they are absolutely crushing it in kind of every way. On the ethical side, their price points are fantastic for what it is. We've even bought stuff for our dad for his birthday. Like we bought him like hats and stuff and just sent it up to Seattle because we're like, this stuff is a great price point and it'll last our dad forever. Like
Shouts out to Pops. You look great.
Yeah, we got him a fisherman's cap from Knickerbocker.
Nice.
Awesome.
It's funny because I got mine. I heard about them through Cody, and I got 2 beanies from him, and they're so great. I wear them all the time.
Yeah, and quick amendment to what am I wearing today, because I wasn't wearing it when we were talking about it. I got this yesterday. I'm holding it up as if you can see it.
He's showing us right now, like it's on like one of those.
It's on a camera.
You buy
Check it
things
out.
on television. You hold your hand underneath it.
It's the olive drab or just olive beanie, because yesterday it was raining.
Yeah, and we walked into Raggedy Threads,
and I saw him, and I was like, "Fuck! Well, I guess today's the day, boys."
And then 2 of my other friends bought them too because they've been used to seeing me wearing them all the time, and it's
Everyone's gonna think we're liars. We just said it rains in Los Angeles.
It doesn't happen.
Shouts out to Raggedy Threads, one of our favorite shops in LA and New York.
Great store.
Yeah.
Currently wearing a ring that I got there. It's a vintage sterling silver ring, probably made in the Southwest, and it's got some inlaid turquoise. Shouts out to Jamie at Raggedy Threads. They've got a location in New York and Los Angeles.
Do you think that, kind of moving on here, that to fix the problem of people buying cheap is that maybe we should tell people to kind of be more intentional of what they're buying? Because one of the reasons that I think we all buy vintage is the details that you just literally you can't find anywher else.
Dude, it's education, man. I think when it comes down to it, I think what you're getting at with this is it's education. And I think a lot of times it's up to people like us. It's up to podcasts like this. It's up to Gooch Collective events. You guys have friends who maybe weren't into fashion at all, and you got them to buy one of these ethically made goods, and they don't really know the weight that purchase holds, how it's probably supporting a immigrant family of a lady who's sewing in a beautiful factory here in the United States, and now those people are able to get a living wage. They don't even understand the weight that one of these purchases holds. And I think that we need to acknowledge that. And I think a lot of these brands are doing a really good job on product and telling their story. But what I'm really interested in as a marketing consultant and as a consumer is hearing more about what happens after the purchase. Because, of course, you're going to love the product and it's going to last you a long-ass time. It's going to be the future vintage because it's actually going to last that long. But knowing about how people are affected means so much. And there are some companies that are doing a good job, but one of my goals as a consumer and as someone who works in the industry in this space is tell the story about the people who make the clothes, the people who design the clothes, and then once the people are in them, what do they do in their day? It's so important to get the full story, and that's what people are craving because we're so disconnected elsewhere in our lives.
And I love that idea of future vintage, which Hiroki Nakamura from Visvim, that's like actually a thing that he's actively talked about. He's like, I want to create clothing that will be the future vintage. And he's actually talked about that. And I love Visvim design. I think that they're fantastic. Now those price points are actually high. I mean, they're fantastically made, but a lot of the companies that we've previously talked about, and even these brands that are at the Gooch Collective, like, Cody and 2120 and the Ragaman and stuff, they're actually not the price point of, like, let's say a Visvim, which would be considered like high fashion. Yeah. Even though it's the clothing is not necessarily high fashion, it's designer.
I would call some of the brands that we're talking about like entry level ethical. So solid price points, but you're not having to worry about, was this made in a bad way and is it going to last a long time? I'd say it's entry level ethical. Whereas some of those other brands, Visvim, they don't really put any emphasis on whether it's ethical or not. It's more so just like, dude, this fabric takes so long to loom. The dyeing process is unbelievable. Also, John Mayer wears it.
Yeah, exactly. And to go back to a thing that Garrett mentioned, and I think it kind of comes in with these Knickerbocker knit caps as well. This is like a good example of like, that's not something you have to be into fashion to want to wear.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I think you guys have friends, and we have friends too, that have bought these caps and been like, shit, this is the best beanie I've ever owned. It's not too hot. I can wear it in cold climates. I can wear it in kind of middle of the road climates. I can dress down suiting with it. Even if it's somebody that wears a suit to a job and they're not stoked about it, like Ethan is, it's just somebody that would wear a suit to their job and then be able to put a beanie on after. It's a big thing. And another thing is, I have a lot of friends, and a lot of them who are musicians who are like interested in aesthetic, but don't necessarily put a bunch of time into learning about menswear and stuff like that. They come up to me all the time and ask about items. Sometimes they're vintage, sometimes they're these kind of brands that we've been talking about. And it's like, people notice this stuff. It's almost like people need to be given more credit for, like, they see something that's different than the typical mall brand stuff, and they do notice. They might not always say something, but people do notice. And it's kind of like, here's another music analogy. It's like when you listen to music that's not overproduced and that was crafted with like real love and meticulously crafted. It's like you listen to the Beach Boys and you're like, this was music made from the heart. And it's like, you hear radio music now and you're like, this was made in a lab. Yeah. And it, like, the engineer, you can see their face just kind of being like, all right, let's do another take, and knowing that they're going to edit it, and they're going to edit the drums, they're going to edit, it's like, it doesn't really matter what they get because they can edit it all on a computer. But it's kind of the same idea with clothing, where it's like, when you see something from a mass-produced company, there's no love. And even people that aren't into clothing, when they see something outside of that, they go like, what is that?
Oh, yeah. Like, I get the piece of clothing I get the most compliments about. It's my Movement watch. Just kidding. We're not sponsored, but it is my watch.
Just kidding. It's Vincero watches.
Shut.
It's Rolex. We're sponsored by Rolex.
Nope. It's actually my regular watch, which is, I don't even know the brand because it's like from the 50s and it doesn't exist anymore. And also it's kind of dark in this room and I can't read the label.
And you're welcome, Spencer.
Yeah, Ethan got it for me from the flea market, and I paid him, so it wasn't It was like I just bought it remotely. But I get
the proxy.
Yep, I get a ton of compliments on it, and the thing that people always point out is like, oh, that's a small watch, because it's different than the big ass watches. Like watches are so big
you mean
now.
it's not diamond plated and
Exactly.
there's not gold everywhere?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the point, is like now
Yeah,
it's become like a watch is now used, especially because people have phones, it's just used as like a statement piece.
And
it's
it's
not
just a watch that I used to look at the time.
Yeah, and I mean, I end up wearing watches sometimes that I've forgotten to wind up, and it's not actually telling the time, but it's still
That's this one right now.
yeah, and that happens. But it's more the thing of like you're not wearing it to be like, look at how big of a watch face I can buy,
Or how much money I have and how much I spent on it. It's more so like, look how beautiful this old thing is.
Yeah.
And this was made so much different than your watches that you see today.
Yeah, like earlier today, I ended up taking it off not too long ago, but I was wearing my grandfather's watch. For Christmas this year, Garrett and I received our grandfather's watches from World War II.
Oh, wow.
Garrett got a
Man,
brown
that's
one, I
awesome.
got a black one. And just looking at the like beveled glass, you're like, oh shit, that's a whole nother level of craftsmanship that like I actually realized as I got it on Christmas Day, like I don't think I've seen a modern watch with like beveled glass and all that stuff ever. And especially seeing one the size of this watch, it's like it's so beautiful. It's small, but it doesn't look dainty. Like it still looks like masculine, but it's not being like ugh, like knuckle dragger, like giant watch face show off BS, you know.
Also, another point on this, and maybe it's because now I've been exposed to a lot of things in the leather goods area. These straps are real leather. Something you're going to notice in most watches now, unless you go way high, if you get something that's a leather band watch, it's not real leather. It's polyurethane. There's a reason why if it gets a little bit wet and you wear it a little while, it tears. And that plastic that's on top of it falls apart. It's because it's not real leather.
Yeah.
And so the cool thing about some of these vintage watches that we have is they chose to make it right then. And what we're talking about now is things where you buy them and you're going to continue to experience diminishing returns from buying from these same companies because they're just going to get more greedy and use worse materials, and your clothes are going to literally fall off of your body.
Also, man, the watches they're ugly, man.
Modern
Like,
watches are
yeah.
really
No,
ugly.
like, okay, I don't know if it's because we're going to get into this in some other topic, but I watch YouTube videos of people that we're not going to explicitly mention, but it seems that in the past, like 3 years, like watches are like the latest craze of fast fashion. And, you know, they can say they can read off the copy all they want, but I don't see anything attractive about these watches.
No, they're like the giant watches that have like 3 different like dials on them.
It's
Yeah.
awful.
It's,
Dial me out, baby.
you know, and there's
So bad.
stuff like, you know, they put wood in because apparently wood is like 2 years old already, you know, all the wood craze, you know, so it's weird to me, or I guess it makes sense, you know, seeing where we're going with this consumerism thing.
Yeah, and another thing, and this kind of goes back to that suiting thing that Spencer was talking about before. This also goes back to the kind of military background of our grandfather.
Yeah.
The condition,
Military heritage.
Okay.
the condition that he kept these watches in is incredible.
Yeah.
Because he actually cared for. He knew that these watches were carefully crafted, but he also knew they were meant to last him, and he took care of them. It wasn't a world where he was just going to break it and just go buy another one. Like, it's one of those things where you learn to love something. It doesn't mean you can't live in it and you have to live like you're in a bubble, but it's amazing. Like our grandfather, Garrett and I's grandfather, James Senior Gooch, he was an active dude. He was a boxer on the USS Enterprise and like was an active guy, and yet his watches he kept in this incredible condition because he was taught when he was young, like, you fold your clothes up, you put them away every night, you make sure you get a fresh crease, you make sure that looks good, you make sure it's dry clean, you make sure your shoes are polished, and like he lived like that the rest of his life. I mean, he was in the military early on, obviously, and he lived like that. And we even before we were into fashion or anything, we would see like, oh man, like we just met up with our grandparents and grandpa looks like a boss, and it's like 6 a.m, and he's like completely together. He's not necessarily into fashion at all, but he just was like, it was all about like, I'm going to look good. We're going like if we're going to church, or it wasn't something we really did too much, but they would go all the time, and he would make sure, like, if they went and they're going in public and they're representing the Gooch family, like, he wanted to look good, and he wanted to look put together.
And it's so funny on that topic too. He ended up, when he got back from being on the Enterprise during World War II, he opened a dry cleaning business that he had like for the rest of his life. So maybe in our blood we have like this obsessive nature to like really make sure that things are concrete and put together. Maybe we got a lot of that from him. There's a lot on our mom's side as well, but that's interesting to acknowledge right now, seeing that. Yeah, I mean, he owned a dry cleaning business, and now we make sure our clothes are crisp.
Yeah.
Huh. We got steamers now, baby.
Steam that shit.
So to move on to a slightly newer topic, like
Do it.
It's cool that we're into menswear. People who are into fashion should they shouldn't go to H&M. They shouldn't go to all these other crappy fast fashion brands to shop for clothes. But what about for guys who don't like fashion, who want to have the opportunity to experiment? Because what I've heard is like, oh yeah, I could buy like selvage denim for like $100, which is on the affordable end of something that's still really well made. But what if they don't want to wear selvage? Like, what if they just want like a regular pair of jeans?
Are you talking about me in duck boots right now?
Well, what I'm saying is, what my go-to whenever I have that is like, why don't you try thrifting it? And I guess if we can go back on that for a little bit, but a lot of people don't like doing that, and it
Totally,
baffles
man.
me.
Totally. And the thing is, so on that topic, let's just say we're talking about denim because it's a really good topic to go on.
Sure.
Because a lot of people, when they go from Forever 21 jeans, they think that the next step is buying 21 ounce selvage denim,
Right.
is cardboard when you wear it right out the gate.
Yep.
Right? No, there are very cool companies. One of them I recently came in contact with. They're actually going to be a part of Ziggy, that website. They're called Outland Denim, and I think everything is made in Cambodia by women who were in the past affected by the slave trade business. These women are sewing 75% of the time. The other 25% of the time, they're actually learning how to read and write. And it's like this whole beautiful thing. So it's ethically produced, but I'm not talking like raw selvage, this and that. Solid, like good stretch denim, not crazy rise, very simple stuff that you might see similar looks at H&M and Forever 21. But dude, it is really, really made well and out of beautiful fabrics that they are looming at those facilities. So talk about fixing a problem in the world, and then also and making sure you're not creating another, and then also getting people to reroute some of their mind when it comes to consumption.
Yeah, and on the thrifting end, like obviously there are companies like Garrett just mentioned, but on the thrifting end, if you're somebody that maybe you feel like you have to try them on in person, and you live kind of remotely, and there might be a giant swap meet that's near you, you can go there and try on, brands that you're aware of, like Levi's or Lee or Wrangler, and just try on vintage pants, because all of those pants were already made. They already exist. So wearing those pants is taking zero effect on. It's kind of that middle ground, right? It's not ethical consumption of modern brands, but it's at the very least you're not going to the mall and consuming trash and
then probably like returning it or whatever, like, or throwing it away after you don't want it anymore.
Yeah, and you could try it on. You could try it on in person, and I think I can speak for myself here. I think my wardrobe is probably 80% secondhand items,
right,
and then 20% ethically consumed modern brands. And of that 80% that's secondhand, I'd say probably 50 to 60, maybe 70% of that is vintage, and then the other stuff is like stuff we talked about, like Tom Brown, and like the suits that I have from Tom Brown were made in New York by human beings, like in like 2007 when he was fairly new. So there's a nice. I try to keep a nice mix in my personal life of like I'm buying vintage, I'm buying secondhand, semi-modern stuff, and then I'm also buying ethically consumed modern brands like many of the ones we've just mentioned.
I'd also like to say one thing, just because oftentimes this conversation can come off as us othering people. And I think it's super important for people to not feel that way. And so I want to make one point here. The denim brand that I just talked about, they're doing amazing work. absolutely amazing work for the world, for that country. They're just doing great stuff. But if you're going to be super ridiculous about it, well, a lot of it's purchased in the United States, and so their carbon footprint is a little bit higher because they're producing there and they're shipping here. Don't overwhelm yourself out the gate with those things. The important thing is that you are trying to make certain changes, and over time, as we push other people to make these same changes, we're going to have a positive effect on the planet. So out the gate, don't try to make sure that you're buying USA goods, only made here, not done this way. It's helping people there and also doing this. You can't have, nobody's perfect. None of these brands are 100% perfect. You just have to find as many positive brands as you can that are going to make long-lasting clothing and convince other people and steer them in the direction of doing the same. It's the most important thing. Don't make them feel bad for their purchases. If you get an opportunity to change someone's purchasing habits, do it, because it's going to actually help the planet. Everybody thinks like, oh, if I buy a few more shirts at H&M, it's not going to do anything. Everyone's thinking that way. That's why we're all fucked up. And that's why there are certain areas in China where denim production is high, where, 1 in 3 kids has a birth defect because they're drinking water where chemicals are poured into after doing weird washes on our denim. There's ways of washing denim without using harmful chemicals. We can have an amazing effect on the planet. It just takes all of us accepting responsibility. It takes us really accepting responsibility. If we all felt like those were going to be our family members or our neighbors affected by these things, it would be better. Let's act like that. It's ignorance is not bliss. It's fucking bullshit. And I get very emotional when it comes to this topic because I'm very fortunate to hear a lot of these stories from a lot of the brands that I work with. And if you're experiencing anything from this, I just want you to know it's not impossible to do. Start simple. Start with one item, and once you realize how kick-ass it is and how long it's going to last, get another. Tell your friends about it. Tell your family about it. It just takes one person, and here we are, man. We're going to build a community out of it.
And it's interesting, like even we grew up going to Target and getting clothes, and it's not, and I guess the point here is that it's to like not other people, because we weren't going, and our mom wasn't going to Target to get us shirts because she was like, fuck the environment. She just she was overwhelmed as a mom and was working and raising kids. So I get it. Just because somebody does go and buy all their clothes at the mall doesn't make them a bad person at all. A lot of the times it's just there is such an overwhelming amount of information overload in the modern age, and it's essentially unavoidable. So when you can make that personal connection with a person that you know without making them feel like shit, like the way I get talked to by like certain vegans in LA, where it's like, oh, you eat fish, and it's like this really like oh well fuck you like I don't ever want to make somebody else feel like that, because almost all of it is just a factor of information overload for people where they can only care about so many things. It's like, all of us have iPhones almost in the United States, and that's not, but it's, you have to pick and choose and try to find as many things that you can do ethically as possible. And even if it comes to like, hey, Mom, I hear there's a new farmer's market that they just opened up. Maybe it'd be cool if you went and got some vegetables there instead of going to Ralph's or something down the street. Little suggestions like that. It's kind of the same thing with clothing, where if you can just kind of steer somebody without preaching to them, and maybe, hopefully we haven't come off preaching. I know we're sitting and talking amongst people that are also interested in it. I think the key, and kind of what Garrett was talking about too, is that like, it is totally fine to start late in your life doing this even, and to not beat yourself up about the fact that you hadn't done it before, and just go like, look, even if I don't go to a mall, that's a step in the right direction. Even if I buy from like a place that's not the most ethically made, but it's not made by small children in India, that is a step in the right direction, and that gradual move away from the mall brand fast fashion thing will lead to a lot of great stuff. And so I think that if you can encourage people to make those very minor steps, that it adds up. It's kind of that thing of like, if everybody thinks that it's just one more shirt. It's one more blah blah whatever. That's what adds up, and when everybody's functioning under that mindset, that fucks everything.
That's what got us here. That's exactly what got us here.
Yeah.
Wow, that was good. You guys both made like really good speeches right there. The thing on the top of my head is that what I find with a lot of ethical brands is that it tends to skew a lot more casual workwear, which makes it kind of hard for, I guess, people more like Spencer and I who have like a kind of a classic menswear thing, which is still rare in LA. And I guess that's why our thing is more thrifting and vintage than that, and I guess but we have, as we've talked about, like, we've dabbled in a little bit of that, buying like the teenage denim, doing Knickerbocker and everything, getting, hats from Cody and whatnot. But, I think it would be cool if someday there would be a way to kind of put that into menswear. And I don't know.
I mean, the closest thing I could think of would be like, really small tailor shops where they just do everything in-house, but that's prohibitively expensive for us at the moment.
But I think there's some stuff. What about Kamakura shirts? I mean,
that's true.
I'm wearing
that's true.
one right now. You mentioned that
I own one. Yeah,
you have one.
I have one.
I spent $99 on it, which is less than some of the shirts we sell at Men's Warehouse. So
that's exactly the point.
And
they're less than a Brooks
like,
Brothers shirt.
Yeah. I mean, they're like, I worked at Banana Republic.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's $10 more. That's it.
And these shirts are made in Japan, and as we all know, and we've mentioned on the podcast a million times, and I'm going to say Ame Tora again, just to get a plug in on this episode, just so it's on every episode.
That's right. Come on, Mr. Marks.
That's a good example of like Kamakura is a brand made in Japan, known for meticulous crafting. It's made ethically, and this shirt, like you said, it's like $99 for a really great Oxford, less than a shirt from Brooks Brothers or Men's Warehouse, which, as far as I'm aware, neither are making them very ethically. No. I know you work there, so you can't say that. I will. But yeah, I think that it is possible to do it with tailoring. Obviously, maybe jackets and stuff are harder, but at the very least, trousers and ties and shirts, things that aren't incredibly labor intensive, are being done. I think it's slowly happening. It's just people need to get the idea of spending more money on tailoring means you're getting something better.
And and the thing about thrifting and eBay, buying secondhand, is that these brands, you can find them if you want to try them out for yourself without having, not saying that they're super expensive, but if that's a little bit prohibitive to you, I think that's why Spencer and I can thrift and do all that kind of stuff. Like, when I want to try out Kamakura, I tried looking for some in my size. I didn't find anything, but doing it that way, I think is a good way again to experiment, which a lot of people tend to they don't really want to do it. And I think that's something that Garrett said, that we have to educate people, like showing people what good quality is and then giving them an avenue for it and just kind of opening their mind to it,
Yeah, and also, I mean, on the topic of Kamakura shirts, the more we support brands like that are doing what you guys are saying there's not enough of, the more we support them, the more other entrepreneurs are going to make companies like that offer a entry-level price to something that is, tailored. It's very important to support the good stuff that's already going on, even if it's not exactly what you want at the perfect price. Maybe it's $20 more or something like that. Support it. Other people are going to see that, and there's going to be more amazing companies that are produced and brought to life out of that exact purchase. It takes a little bit of movement for other people to move. Not everyone wants to be the first mover, and these people.
Yeah, I was about to say Movement Watches. Plug in that sponsor.
Wow. Hey, Movement Watches, do you want to give us money? Thanks.
Please.
By the way, all this stuff we've been talking about was just a really roundabout way to give a plug to Movement Watches.
Yeah, MVMT.
Oh, hi there. This is other Garret.
Oh, he's back.
Oh, he's back. Movement Watches. Would you mind doing a sponsorships to us? Get back to me at 247.
555. Come on now.
555.
I don't think they'd want to sponsor after all the kind of the shit we just talked about watches earlier.
We just went from like majorly serious, like me getting all intense, to me doing that voice. Let's get back into it. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Was that, did he just end the podcast?
I feel like that
we didn't even do plugs.
Well, we're gonna do.
Well, how about I think that's a good way to end it. I think that.
How could I have plugs?
I think that Garrett and Josh both had I think they both had like really great points, and they kind of summed it up. I mean, they talked a lot in a good way, because this is something that Spencer and I don't do as much, just because we thrift a lot more. We do classic menswear, like, and stuff, which is again growing in that segment, and I think they captured the mission of ethical consumerism very well.
I mean, and right there, I think that's another component of this. You guys know a ton of amazing things about fashion. You can teach so many people so many cool things about what they're wearing and what they've thrifted. We both are in a similar space, but you guys can teach us all kinds of things we don't know about some of those vintage tailoring brands.
Right.
We can help you on the ethical end, and hopefully what you're going to do from this is tell more people about it. You're going to tell more people about the brands that I maybe consult with that are ethical. People are going to, because of this podcast, hear about a few other brands that
all 10 people who listen.
All 10 people, all 9 people. Somebody dropped off.
Quick shout out to my friend MJ, who listens to us not only on SoundCloud but on iTunes, because he wants to make sure that we get stuff and listen. Oh, cool! There we go.
Yeah, baby.
Podcast, baby. Yeah.
Anyways, it takes us talking more, and if anything, you guys telling a few of your friends who maybe aren't super into fashion about a couple of these brands, and they make a few purchases, that actually has an impact. Don't think that a small action doesn't have an impact. Yeah. We got to think big. Think big, baby.
Did he just come up with our
Think Big Baby?
Our Think Big Baby? Is that our
mascot?
No, wait, is that our sign off for this one?
Think, you big baby, but I'm just taking
gotcha,
so
gotcha.
Comma, big baby, period.
So
Well-
your new mascot's a big baby.
Yeah.
It's the boss baby.
That's the God damn it.
Baby.
That's me.
Well, let's move into our final segment, something like to call plugs. I literally said that the exact same way Scott Ackerman said it.
With a different name for it since we stole it.
Yeah,
We'll figure that out.
yeah. We'll fix that in post.
Yeah. I love the post, by the way. Just
That's
quick
your
shout out. Yeah. Josh, you wanna?
You can cash me on the gram at the thing is, I don't actually even know what that's from.
You're so on trend right now, and you don't even know it.
You're so on fleek.
I'm fleeking so hard right now. You can find me on the gram. Oh, Jesus, I hate myself. Joshua Ray Gooch, JOSHUA RAYGOOCH on Instagram, and there's a lot of content on there. I post stuff from different guitar stuff. It's basically like guitar and fashion, or kind of music and fashion.
A little
it's really,
GNF for you.
It's just and boba, so it's really basically like the Gooch Collective thing. Like my life is pretty much music, fashion, friends, and boba. That's kind of how I sum it all up.
I couldn't make an abbreviation for all that. I wasn't. Yeah, okay.
It's
my bad.
Yeah, I threw too much at you. And then also Gooch Collective, at Gooch Collective on Instagram. We're going to be doing these, and even while I'm on tour, Garrett's going to be holding that torch in town.
We're going to miss you, bud.
I appreciate that, man. I am very excited to go on tour, but I'm also sad to leave town because this has been like these Gooch Collective events have really been so much fun. Like after that first event at Wellama, my buddies were like, "What's wrong with your face? You're smiling like so like." They're like, "Who asked you to prom, buddy?" And like I was like,
"I've never been to prom."
What's that feel like?
I actually didn't go to prom. I was touring already.
Ethan
so
and I technically have also never been to prom because we both went to Christian high schools that didn't use that word. Mine was called the junior senior banquet. What was yours called?
We had junior senior banquet, but again, I think that was only for juniors and seniors.
Junior bang fest.
Oh my God!
Okay, that shows that we're brothers. We both wanted to say junior senior banquet. We have problems.
And it's also thanks, Dad.
Yeah, and then also thanks, Mom, for allowing Dad to make us this way. Love you guys.
Yeah, if my dad were here, he would have made that same joke.
But quicker than us, because my boy's quick.
My pops is quick. Here, I'll give.
My God.
On that note, I'm going to give Garrett the microphone. I don't know which Garrett we're going to get, but we'll find out.
Oh, hey, Dad?
Oh, it's this one.
Dad? Well, hello. Let me go give real Garrett the microphone. Oh, here it is. Oh, okay. This is real Garrett. Real Garrett's
Foley
back.
work.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really.
I
good
love
at
Dave
Foley. I'm really good at Foley. So I'm gonna throw my Instagram out there. It's at. If you didn't know, you had to put the at there. Gucci Baby, GOOCHYBABY. One more time, GOOCHYBABY. I'm not going to say it a third time, so I hope you got it either one or two. I'm just going to give a little shout to Blue Made, BLLUEMADE.
That's two
Blue
L's,
Made
guys.
with two L's. I think it's so cool in this industry when you get to support each other. My brother and I ended up supporting them in Inspiration. Josh got a sweet cap by them. I got a sweet set of overalls, 100% Belgian linen in olive green.
Those are cool.
They're unbelievable. They're super comfy. They rolled out to the Rose Bowl today.
Nice.
Because they are in town doing Market Week at the Line Hotel. And Lily, the co-owner, she bought a pair of shoes from us. And it's one of those cool things. Like, you got cool people around you, man. Support them. I think I mentioned this in the previous interview with me on here. It's so important to support your friends. Oftentimes we'll support some of these big-ass companies that don't care about us at all. They only care about our money. And you have a friend who's like doing handmade goods and working their ass off. Dude, go and help them out and support them. Buy something from them. Let them buy something from you. And then shout their name from the rooftops if you actually believe in them. It's not a real friendship if you don't. And I think that's super, super important. And I'm gaining a lot of these really cool relationships with a lot of these brands that I'm starting to work with, and getting their support means the world after I have done all I can to support them. It's so super cool. So shouts out to all those peeps.
I got one last quick plug.
Okay.
So I'm going on tour this year with Shania Twain, doing a world tour, but I'm going to be traveling through a lot of different cities, and I never know what my schedule is going to be like, how much time I'm going to have. But if there are any listeners of the podcast or
all
brand
10 of
owners,
them.
Well, maybe by the time we release this
hit
one.
me up if I'm coming to your city, and if I have time, maybe we can chat or something like that. At the very least, let me know what cool stuff is in your city while I'm traveling. Like if anybody has, if I'm going to some city in Nebraska or I'm going to San Francisco and you're like, hey, there's this place, hit me up, because it's amazing.
Even vintage too. I mean, those are small business owners too who work hard to get some cool stuff.
And these are people that love the craftsmanship that we've been talking about, and they dedicate their life to kind of salvaging the last bit of vintage that's out there. So yeah, hit me up. Let me know what vintage stuff is in your town, what small businesses or fashion people. I love that. I've already talked to menswear people over in like England and stuff about, hey, I'm going to play. Why don't you guys come to the show? I'd love to hang out and meet up. It's a great thing for me to see people while I'm on the road, because I'm essentially on the bus with a small amount of people for the entire tour. So it's really cool to see people that are like-minded in other cities. Yeah. So hit me up. Write me on Instagram. I don't know, how. Hopefully, I'll get back to you as quick as I can, and I want to see some of you while I'm traveling. Yeah.
Cool. I think Spencer's going to go now.
Yep. My Instagram is @SpencerDSO. Find me, and I'll reveal to you all my secrets. Cash me outside. How about that? Like 2 years ago called. I don't know. Was that 2 years ago or just last year? Was that 2016 or 2017?
Last year, Spencer.
Okay, sorry.
The program.
I'm sorry.
I don't know any of those things. I'm so out of it.
She was on Dr. Phil.
I wasn't holding my mic. What I said was unimportant. Spencer, continue.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of pop culture wise, I guess I'm rewatching Portlandia. It's a good show. Check it out.
Great plug.
But also, I'm going to just plug community activism in general, I guess, because we were talking about a whole lot about ethical consumption, and there's buying. I like buying clothes. There ain't nothing wrong with it, but if there are any other causes that you care about, go seek them out, because it's like, I used to think, oh, nothing happens in Orange County, but the last year. I've been, involved with a bunch of different groups that help out, with there's been an explosion of homelessness in the area. Find that's what I care about. Find an issue that you care about and get involved. That's important. Do it.
Woo! I feel like I've got no cool deep plugs.
You got the whole world in your hands, baby.
You can find me on @EthanMWong. I mean, I'm sure if you guys listen to this, you guys know who I am. I post cool pictures of my friends all the time, including pictures of myself. And if you look at my story, there's some wacky shit that goes on there. So feel free to look at that. In terms of plugs, shit, I just had one in my head and I just totally forgot it because I was talking.
Give him silence.
No, I don't need silence.
Do you want some Foley?
I don't need Liam Neeson and
Liam Neeson?
Adam Driver and Andrew Garfield to
Liam
give it to me.
You talking about Liam Neeson?
Nice.
I don't. He doesn't have a mic. I don't know if people are hearing exactly. He was
you don't
making.
need, you know.
It wasn't important.
Oh hi, this is Second Garret.
But in terms of, I guess, pop culture, Steely Dan. I mean, I don't know if you guys who are listening know who that is, but yeah, Josh showed me, like, I mean, the past few times we've hung out, he just showed me in the car, and I'm just like, this is some dope ass music.
I love that Steely Dan just got a plug on your podcast.
I mean, what else would it be?
Elated right now. I love that. Shouts out to Steely Dan, all you guys, all you Steely heads out there.
Is he still? Are they still alive?
Unfortunately, Walter. Oh my god, I'm blanking right now.
Give him some Liam Neeson.
The guitar player passed away. This
no!
Last year, actually.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
What time to get into
Becker.
it?
Yeah, Walter Becker. Donald Fagen's still alive, so go see him. But I just love that Steely Dan's getting a plug. They are a wonderful band, and I'm gonna send you all their music.
Oh, I
so
hope you
excited.
do. I hope you do. I guess my plug will be for, like, eBay and Etsy. Those guys have always been my way of, getting into high quality brands that you wouldn't normally be able to get for yourself, and especially where Spencer and I are in life.
Yep.
And even if as I grow in my career, I feel like I'll still always go that way, just because I feel like I don't need to always buy new. Even if I think I've heard that, like, even wool is not like it's not a good
Yeah, I
thing.
mean, it's
Or cotton, I think, too. Cotton.
Well, sheep are, like, bred differently now too.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
something we could have touched on that too, but I
We
think
didn't. Too bad.
yeah, too bad. Podcast over.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like buying old things because it's not going in the trash, not going to some landfill, and so it allows me to not only dress the way I want, but experiment with new things. And I think that's something that a lot of people, again, don't do. And once they get to do that, it opens it up to whether buying vintage or buying from these cool brands that we've talked about.
Yeah. And just like vintage store owners, people on Etsy, they a lot of them make a living, or at least pay part of their living with Etsy stuff. Like almost everything in my living room, I bought it, like a Rose Bowl from somebody like that, or some type of flop meat, some type of swap meat, or
What's
like
a flop
Etsy.
meat?
Oh, it's when a bunch of
Oh, God.
divers decide to do front flips, but instead of doing a piercing dive into the water where they don't make a splash, they make a splash with their bellies.
Oh,
So it's a belly swap meat.
Yep.
that's the joke now.
But yeah,
There we go.
even people on Etsy, it's the same
No,
thing
okay,
where it's like
I got
these
it.
people are support them.
Oh yeah,
Same thing.
I'm wearing a tie right now. I want to say shout out to Spencer Stewart. He is Vintage Haberdasher. I think it's Vintage-Haberdasher on eBay. He's been selling vintage for
I have
I don't know.
notifications turned on for him on eBay.
Yeah,
He has great stuff.
He has great stuff. I mean, all the ties. We didn't really talk too much about classic menswear on this one, but one of the hallmarks of a great tie is like thin interlining, hand rolled edges, crazy fabric like brocade silk. That's stuff that you can't really find today. I mean, I know that Drake's does that, Sevenfold Frenzy. Those things.
Those aren't cheap. I mean,
Those aren't cheap, but they are made.
They're
Yeah,
great.
yeah. If you can, I know guys who buy them and they're super well made. I know Drake's makes them I think above one of their stores, all by hand. It's crazy.
Great quality.
But if you can't do that, at least not right now, like I do, I buy vintage ties, and that's that's one way to, not only get quality but support people. And this guy Spencer Stewart has been doing it for such a long time, and he does it so faithful. Like he puts up hundreds of ties all at once, and they sell out.
Yeah. And that's a perfect example of you going I don't have money to buy Drake stuff right now. I know how great it is. I know how great the quality is. I know how much love they're putting into it, but I just straight up can't afford it right now. Yeah. And so you're acknowledging, you're like, when I'm in a place that I have the right kind of cash for that, I can get involved in that along with this vintage stuff. But for right now, the vintage stuff works for my budget. And that's exactly the point of you are keeping an eye on what's happening and you're doing your part.
Right.
And I think a cool thing that came to mind after that is you might fill out your wardrobe with a lot of like Drake's ties in the future, you know, when you're rolling in the coins and stuff.
Let's hope,
and
right?
The cool thing is, at a certain point, what you might do is you might sell off a lot of your old vintage ties to people who were where a lot of us were a few years ago. It's cyclical, dude. You might be selling off vintage ties to people who were just like you a few years ago when you first started getting into this stuff. That is so rad. It's so rad to think about.
Like future vintage. I think that's what you were mentioning earlier, right?
Yeah. Read some
Super
interviews
cool.
with Hiroki Nakamura from Visvim. He is
Another plug.
really. Yeah, it's not even a plug for Visvim the brand. It's like the guy is. He really has a great kind of just story about what he hopes that great clothing made now will be in the future, and I just love that concept. Not a Visvim plug, although I love their stuff. More just a conceptual.
And here's the last plug before we get into our goodbye and our sign off. But quick shout out to Scott Ackerman, because he talking about recycling stuff. I honestly would not have been able to make this podcast without listening to Scott Ackerman, Comedy Bang Bang, and getting inspired to do something that I like and do my own spin on it. And hopefully in the future we don't just rehash his transitions and and stuff. But just quick shout out to him.
Yeah, because we've talked about we have. Did we mention this in another episode? We have like a master list of like future guests, and we were like, let's dream big. Paul F. Tompkins on the podcast.
And technically,
he's a big menswear fan and buys hats.
Right.
He buys hats from
and it's
Wellamo.
not like he got something from Wellamo, so it's not impossible that we can meet him.
Well,
at some
I think
point.
the same thing that we were talking about with the Gooch Collective. I think that your podcast has the potential to really reach a lot of people, and I think that as you guys get more guests on that are more diverse, it's that thing of like somebody else that's into something that's slightly off from classic menswear might listen for that one episode and then go, let me check something else out, and then they end up listening and then they leave a review. It's a gradual process, and I know you guys aren't on like a podcast network, which obviously helps for like ads on other shows and stuff, but you guys are going to make a gradual increase in listenership, and you guys are doing something that it doesn't exist out there. I've looked. I mean, I've tried to find.
And he's a huge podhead.
I've been listening to podcasts for a really long time, and especially when I'm on the road, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and there are some menswear-ish podcasts out there, but nothing really like what you guys are doing. And I'm excited to see the future. I think you guys have a huge potential of listenership. I think there's going to be a lot more guys than just people that are into classic menswear and vintage clothing in the future. And I think your podcast could become really important in the fashion menswear world. So I wish you guys luck, and I'm happy to be on the show and leave a review as Turk or Gerbs after the first week.
Yeah. So on that point, please do leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you write them out, that really helps out. If you want to put 5 stars and you enjoyed it, even if you didn't enjoy it, please put 5 stars. And if you want to get in touch with us, you can find us on Instagram at Style and Direction. That's our main thing. I don't think we need to plug our email because no one ever goes in the email. So let's just
say it anyway.
It's styleanddirection@gmail.com. You can do it.
Check it out.
With Steve Brule.
Yeah, but please, put us on Instagram. We post, pictures of our guests there, along with the kind of the funny pictures that we kind of reference throughout the whole thing. And get in touch with us, and please support us if you want us to keep going. Cool. And so
red, yellow,
oh my God.
Yellow leather.
That's is that our sign off?
One more time. Ready? Okay. 1, 2, 3. Red leather, yellow leather. Red leather, yellow leather. Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
All right, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.